My name is Jang Huayin, and I was born with 5 spiritual roots, the worst grade a cultivator can draw, 5 years to crawl a single layer. Everyone on Green Bamboo Mountain had already decided what my life would be. Then the black pearl on my chest woke up. It breaks any bottleneck I hit, and it eats the flesh of Yao beasts to recharge. By 24, I had killed a Foundation Establishment beast from underneath it. The worst grade there is, in the right hands. Tap that like, hit subscribe, and stick around. Both keep these uploads alive. To get here, I had to start as nothing. Let me show you that morning. Green Bamboo Mountain stands 1,000 feet high, which makes it one of the more prominent peaks in 300 miles of wild ranges. The Jang family of Green Bamboo Mountain is one of the 12 chi refining families in Manhwa County. I opened my eyes inside my immortal cave, sitting cross-legged on the stone floor in white, and let the count settle in my head. Chi refining 3rd layer perfection. I could finally try for the 4th. My name is Jang Huijin, 3rd generation of the Jang family of Green Bamboo Mountain, ranked 2nd among my generation. 15 years old, 5 spiritual roots, and 5 years of grinding to polish myself to the top of the 3rd layer. This world belongs to immortal cultivators. They live long and they stand above everyone else, and every person alive wants to be one to step onto the immortal path, hold real power, stretch their lifespan, and maybe never die at all. But only a person born with spiritual roots can draw in heaven and earth spiritual chi and walk that road, which is why only those with spiritual roots are allowed to live on Green Bamboo Mountain. The mountain holds an upper 1st grade spiritual vein that generates heaven and earth spiritual chi without stopping. And that flow is what feeds the cultivation of every immortal cultivator in the family. Most of the world is not like this. Out there, the spiritual chi is either too thin to matter or so violent it will tear a cultivator apart, and neither is any use to anyone trying to absorb it. Inside a spiritual vein, the chi runs gentle and balanced and does no damage to the meridians, which makes a spiritual vein the single most critical asset any cultivation force owns. A force can decline as far as it likes, and as long as its spiritual vein is intact, it still has a road back. An upper 1st grade vein can support 30 cultivators at the chi refinement stage. That vein is the only reason the Jang family managed to put down roots here and grow into a chi refining family at all. I stood and walked out of the cave. Green mountains ran away into the distance, layered and lush, and every so often the roar of a Yao beast came drifting up out of them. Cultivation is a hard road. My generation has work to do. 15 years since I arrived here from Blue Star. In my last life I was an orphan, alone from the beginning and with nobody to fall back on. And I never let myself get bitter about it. I ground my way into a decent life instead. A man needs some fun in his off hours, so I took a night to relax. And when I woke up, I was a newborn baby. I felt genuinely cheated. More than a decade of clawing upward, life finally sweet. And then I landed here with no explanation and no warning. As an infant, anybody would have taken that badly. But done is done. I sulked for a while and then made my peace with it. And when I understood this was a world of immortal cultivation, the sulking stopped entirely. Honestly, what ordinary person would not want to cultivate? Who does not want to be the kind of being who rides the wind and chases the grand Tao of eternal life? Cultivation is the shape that hope takes in everyone's chest, the hope of staying young forever and never dying, and immortal cultivation is more than enough to satisfy that. My luck held, too. I was reborn into a cultivation family and I had spiritual roots. Compared to mortals born without them, or to loose cultivators with no force standing behind them, my situation was better by an order of magnitude I could not measure. My roots were only 5 spiritual roots and they still mattered enormously to a chi refining family. Because a chi refining family is a cultivation force in name only. In the vast and boundless cultivation world, we do not rate as highly as ants. Manhwa County alone holds 3 Foundation Establishment forces and 12 chi refining families, and the loose chi refining family cultivators outnumber all of us together. It was only after I started cultivating that I understood what spiritual roots actually do to a person's life. A 5 spiritual roots cultivator absorbs heaven and earth spiritual chi appallingly slowly, and sitting directly inside a spiritual vein barely improves it. A 3-element spiritual root absorbs twice as efficiently as I do. Set me beside a dual spiritual root genius or someone with a heavenly spiritual root and the comparison stops being a comparison. 5 spiritual roots might spend 5 years breaking a single layer. A heavenly spiritual root might do it in a few months. In the Jang family, every child gets tested for spiritual roots once a year starting at 6, since roots are generally settled by then. Any child who has them comes straight up to Green Bamboo Mountain and enters the academy. That begins 4 years of learning to read and write, conditioning the body, and studying Taoist scripture, which lays the groundwork for whatever cultivation career follows. Children born with a spiritual root all come out a little precocious, so as long as they apply themselves, none of it is difficult. At 10, they formally draw chi into the body and step onto the path. 5 years of that had put me at chi refining third layer perfection, and an ordinary 5 spiritual roots cultivator would never have gotten there. Reaching the second layer in that time would have been considered a good showing. That is genuinely how slow 5 spiritual roots is. The reason I move faster than that is the pearl on my chest. There is a black and white pearl tattooed over my heart, and it came here with me. Most of the time it sits there as a mark on the skin, and the moment anything unusual happens it sinks down into my flesh and blood and disappears. Nobody else has ever seen it. When I was small my father washed me and looked straight past it, and my mother did the same. When I ran around naked with the other children, not one of them ever mentioned a mark on my chest. From that I knew what I was carrying was a treasure that could shake the world. It also occurred to me fairly early that the pearl might be the reason I was here at all. So I did not let myself relax for a second. Once the test found my spiritual roots, I went into the academy and studied like my life depended on it, waiting for the day I would be allowed to cultivate. The year I turned 10, I drew chi into my body. When the first strand of heaven and earth spiritual chi gathered inside me, the pearl that had been silent for a decade finally spoke. Realm-breaking pearl. That was its name, and its function was exactly what the name promised. It helps an immortal cultivator break through bottlenecks, and once it has accumulated a full charge of energy, it can carry a person straight through a realm. The moment I became a chi-refining first-layer cultivator, a visualization diagram surfaced in my sea of consciousness, and the pearl had left that too. Inside endless chaos chi, a black and white Taeguk diagram floats slowly up and down, turning like a millstone, grinding and tempering everything around it. For 5 years it had been tempering my divine soul without pause. The pain came and went, and sometimes it was close to unbearable, and for my divine soul it was a blessing of the highest order. The Chaos Taeguk visualization diagram. I had only just touched chi refining third layer perfection, and my divine soul power was already worth a chi refining late stage cultivators. It changed the rest of me too. I became noticeably sharper, picking up cultivation techniques and scriptures almost as fast as I could read them, and my cultivation speed came out roughly level with an average 3-element spiritual root, which is exactly why nobody in the family found my progress alarming. After leaving the diagram behind, the realm-breaking pearl went back to sleep. Over those 5 years, it quietly drank strands of the heaven and earth spiritual chi I cultivated, and by the end of them, the tattoo that had been pure white turned black and white again. The energy inside it was full to the brim, and I could feel that one thought would put me into the chi refining fourth layer and mid-stage chi refining. The pearl has limits. Breaking a bottleneck costed an enormous amount of energy, and after it left me the Chaos Taeguk visualization diagram, it had been completely drained. Refilling took a full 5 years. More importantly, it only works on genuine bottlenecks. The wall between the third layer and the fourth is exactly that, and it is a serious one, because a 5 spiritual roots cultivator can spend 7 or 8 years failing to cross it, which means that as long as the pearl is charged, realm bottlenecks simply stop existing for me. For the ordinary minor realms in between, the Chaos Taeguk visualization diagram keeps me moving at 3-element pace anyway, so between the two of them I can pull comfortably ahead of everyone my age. And I have a feeling the diagram's contribution is going to keep growing. When that day comes, I am going to fly. A clear voice broke in from down the path, calling me an ascetic, and announcing that I had finally come out of seclusion, and adding that grandfather and uncle wanted me. I turned around smiling as a youth in gray came up the slope at a dead sprint and stopped beside me like a thrown stone. I told him to slow down, that if there was something to say he could say it slowly, and then I gave the top of his head an irritated pat. The gray-clothed one is Jang Huijium, my second uncle's second son, 13 this year and 5th among the 3rd generation. 4-element spiritual root, chi refining second layer. 3 years since he started cultivating and he was already into the second layer, which tells you what 4-element does compared to 5. Without the Chaos Taeguk visualization diagram, I would still be sitting at the second layer myself. That is what spiritual roots mean to a cultivator. In a chi-refining family like ours, most members come out at 4-element or 5 spiritual roots. A single 3-element is enough to make someone the family's future. Foundation establishment stays out of reach, and reaching chi-refining completion is close to guaranteed for them as long as they do not die young. Dual spiritual roots or a heavenly spiritual root is not something anyone here even daydreams about. Even if our luck somehow ran that hot, we would not dare keep a genius like that. We would hand them to a great sect, because keeping them would bring the kind of trouble that ends families. The strong eat the weak. That is the law of the cultivation world, and nobody pretends otherwise. Huijium scowled and demanded to know how many times he had to tell me not to hit his head. Then he admitted he had no idea what this was about. Only that grandfather and uncle wanted me over there fast. I told him I understood, and then I told him I had lied to him previously, and that patting his head would not stunt his growth at all. He lifted his chin at that. So I told him that since it definitely would not stunt his growth, I intended to pat it every single time I saw him. Then I went up the slope laughing while he cursed at my back for a good long while. The summit of Green Bamboo Mountain is rows of green pavilions standing in neat lines where the family's cultivators live, all of it screened and half hidden by dense stands of green bamboo. When the breeze moves through, the leaves rustle and the whole peak sounds like it is breathing. I stepped into the main hall and two pairs of eyes came up to meet me. Grandfather told me the third layer perfection was not bad at all, and that if everyone in the Jiang family worked as hard as I did, he would have nothing to complain about. He is Jiang Sung-mun, clan chief of the Jiang family, 88 years old, a qi refining great perfection cultivator, and the pillar the whole family rests on. 4-element spiritual root, and he came up as a loose cultivator, and it took him until 40 to force his way into the qi refining 7th layer. Knowing exactly what his own talent was worth, and carrying injuries besides, he decided to found a family and multiply his bloodline instead. That decision is the entire reason the Jiang family of Green Bamboo Mountain exists. The other man in the hall was my father, Jiang Riyan, grandfather's eldest son. He was the first 3-element spiritual root cultivator the Jiang family ever produced, 48 this year, and already at the qi refining 8th layer. He had been throwing himself at the 9th for a while now. For a qi refining family, the 9th layer is the level that decides whether the family lives, and if he could reach it before 50, he might still have a real chance at foundation establishment. He waved a hand and told grandfather to stop praising me before it went to my head, then gestured me into a seat so we could talk about the family. He laid it out quickly and I understood the shape of it immediately. Holding the family together was becoming difficult. Our cultivator population kept growing and our resources did not. This year's harvest had come in poor with the spiritual rice yield well down on previous years, and there were too many places inside the family that needed hands. The Jiang family is not yet 60 years old. We own 50 acres of Tier 1 spiritual fields, every acre of it reclaimed step by step by grandfather and his descendants over decades. 30 of those acres sit on Green Bamboo Mountain. The other 20 are scattered elsewhere, and those scattered fields now needed someone to guard them. And every cultivator in the family already had a job. I was at 3rd layer perfection, which meant I counted as combat power, which meant I could be spent. There was nothing unfair about it. The largest resource a qi refining family produces is the spiritual rice in its fields, and that rice is the livelihood of the entire clan. It is also tied to our brewing operation, and if anything goes wrong with it, the spiritual wine shop in Nongye County closes. Grandfather had something real behind him when he founded the family. The injury he took back then came from an opportunity he seized, and what he came away with was 3 brewing recipes for spiritual wine. Those recipes are the true reason the Jiang family holds any ground in Nongye County at all. On top of that, we hold legacies in talisman refining and artifact refining, both first grade, which makes us relatively well-rounded next to other qi refining families. Among the 100 arts of immortal cultivation, alchemy, artifact refining, formation, and the talisman master's craft are the most widely used and have the best futures. My second uncle, Jiang Riang, is a medium first-grade talisman master, and he turns out hundreds of talismans a month for the family. I had not picked a craft yet, because of my realm and my roots. But my father is a spiritual plant farmer, and I had spent my spare hours since childhood learning that craft until I knew it thoroughly. The spiritual plant craft is the most widely accepted of the 100 arts, and the easiest to start on. With mid-stage qi refining coming, it was time to pick something and start earning my own resources. And a spiritual plant farmer understands spiritual fields and spirit medicine better than anyone. If a man ever gets his hands on an alchemy legacy and pours enough resources into it, that road ends at alchemist. So I told them I understood what they meant, and that I was willing to go to Heavenly Yang Mountain and hold it while the family was short of hands. Heavenly Yang Mountain is a low first-grade spiritual vein the Jiang family holds, with 7 acres of spiritual fields reclaimed on it after decades of work. Grandfather apologized. He said Heavenly Yang Mountain was only low first grade with thin spiritual qi, and that it would drag my cultivation speed down badly. There was real helplessness in how he said it. That is the sorrow of a qi refining family, that developing the family means sacrificing the Tao path of its own people. My roots were only 5 spiritual roots, and my natural talent was not ordinary, since I could hold anything I read at a glance, and grandfather thought highly of me for it, and the family had nobody else to send. I told him it was fine. I was 15, and it was time I contributed. 15 years of living here had made me a member of the Jiang family in every way that counts. From my childhood to now, this family tightened its belt and went without, and it never once shortchanged my cultivation or my raising. Among the 12 qi refining families of Nongye County, we sit at the bottom. Surviving is hard, and holding it together has cost grandfather and my father more than either of them says. My father especially. He was the first 3-element spiritual root the family ever had, and his birth is what made grandfather decide to found the family in the first place. At 48, he had only reached chi refining 8th layer perfection. Born into a foundation establishment family, a man like him would have been a foundation establishment seed, and with sufficient resources he might already have made it. Born into a chi refining family, there simply was not enough of anything. He said quietly that this was the duty of every Jang clansman, that my eldest brother had been out working a long time, and that it was my turn now. That brother is Jang Huin, my blood elder brother by the same mother, 30 this year, and the first of the third generation to be found with a spiritual root. The first generation of the Jang family was grandfather alone. After founding it, he took wives and concubines to propagate the bloodline. He also set the generation characters for the family, a long-ordered list running Sung, Ri, Hui, In, Ji, Ji, Yu, Hyun, and onward through 20 in total. Across those decades, he fathered more than 20 children, and out of all of them, exactly 4 had spiritual roots. 3 sons and 1 daughter. The children born without them were resettled 15 miles away at the foot of Green Bamboo Mountain to marry and raise families of their own. After decades, that settlement grew into a genuinely lively place called Green Bamboo Town. The third generation has 9 cultivators in it, and I rank second. Half of them are descendants of my rootless uncles down in Green Bamboo Town, because mortals can produce children with spiritual roots. The odds are just terrible, roughly 1 in 1,000. Grandfather sighed, flicked a finger, and a storage pouch appeared in front of me. Divine light went through my eyes when I saw it. A storage pouch is essential equipment for any cultivator, and a low first grade one still costs dozens of spirit stones, and I had never been anywhere near affording one. He told me it held 2 medium first grade magical artifacts, a bottle of medium first grade essence origin pills, and 100 spirit stones, and that I should consider it his compensation to me. The pouch itself was mine as well. Then he sighed again and walked out with his hands behind his back. My father stood up after him. He told me that with the spiritual plant farmer craft he had taught me, I would become a spiritual plant farmer quickly, and that the 7 acres on Heavenly Yang Mountain were now mine. Then he told me to be careful in everything, and not to leave the mountain unless something major forced me to. And he put a hand on my shoulder while he said it. Afterward, he took out 2 sound-transmitting talismans and told me to send word if I hit anything I could not handle. He added that the family was in a genuinely difficult stretch, and that he had a feeling somebody was circling us. Going to Heavenly Yang Mountain, he said, I should be careful about everything. I kept my face still and nodded, and told him I understood, and then I told him the Jang family was only going to get better from here. He looked briefly stunned, and then he smiled at me with his whole face and agreed that it would. Then he said we were about to part, and that I should go see my mother. My mother is San Suji. She was a loose cultivator, and my father met her back when he had just stepped onto the immortal path and gone out for experiential training. They crossed paths several times, and eventually he married her and brought her home. And somehow, more than 20 years had gone by since. Her contribution to the Jang family has been enormous. She bore my father 7 children, and 3 of them had spiritual roots. For a cultivator, the union of 2 cultivators produces children with spiritual roots at a decent rate, and my mother's rate was close to half, which is an outright explosion of luck. It made grandfather deeply happy, and it earned her a standing in this family that almost nobody matches. She is a 4-element spiritual root herself, and the same age as my father, and her own cultivation has only barely reached the chi refining 5th layer. Bearing that many children severely depletes a cultivator's origin chi, and the family never had the resources to replenish hers in time, so her realm crawls. She has never once complained about it. She poured everything into raising us instead. The 4 without spiritual roots settled down and started families in Green Bamboo Town, and she still goes down to see them often. Immortals and mortals live in different worlds though, and as the years pass that distance grows on its own. In the world of cultivation, spiritual roots are simply too important for it to go any other way. I told her I was leaving. She was sitting composed and straight-backed in plain clothes, and she told me she had made my favorite stir-fried pork with chili peppers, and that I should eat before I went. Her voice was perfectly level. Her eyes were not. My eldest brother had done this same thing once. He left Green Bamboo Mountain for the family, and could not come home even once in several years. And now it was my turn. The family had too few cultivators, and earning resources takes cultivators, and the 3rd generation was filling out but had not grown up yet. Give it time and there would be hands enough. So I sat down without ceremony and ate like a man who meant it. She had grown those chili peppers herself, and there were threads of spiritual chi running through them. The meat came off a medium first grade Yao beast, and the rice was spiritual rice, still steaming. A mother's cooking tastes like home. My nose stung, and I made myself hold it in, and I cleared every dish on the table. Then she started pulling things out, 10 low first grade talismans, and 3 medium first grade ones. The medium ones bought off my second uncle, and the 10 low ones a gift from him. 20 pounds of Scarlet Sun spiritual rice, which I was to eat sparingly. 20 pounds of Scarlet Sun spiritual wine, which she had gone and asked grandfather for. She stacked all of it in front of me. She told me that if I ran into danger, I was not to fight it out, because as long as I was alive, everything else could be rebuilt. My own life came first, and I was to come back and see her often. She said it word by word, and I could see she wanted to physically load every possession she owned into my arms. My chest went tight. After a long moment, I managed to thank her. Then I asked where my sister was, mostly because the air in that room was getting heavier than I could carry. She said who knew where the girl was running wild, and that I should hurry up and go. If my sister saw me leaving, it would turn into another whole ordeal, and her eardrums could not survive that crying. She said it with a look of pure disdain. I laughed, told her I was going, and turned around and went. She stood there watching until I was out of sight. Then she called out for whoever was hiding inside to come out, and my father came out looking sheepish and mildly embarrassed. She asked him whether saying one word to his own son would actually have killed him, and rolled her eyes at him. He shook his head and told her she did not understand, that between men everything goes without saying. She told him to get lost and go cultivate, and that the sight of him was annoying her. The old master had the whole younger generation scrimping on food to pool resources for his 9th layer breakthrough. So did he really have the face to keep standing around here? Then she told him not to come see her again until he had made it. He did not dare answer back. He pulled his neck in and left crestfallen. She was right, and he knew it. The old master was advanced in years, and the Jiang family urgently needed a chi refining 9th layer cultivator, and my father was 48. Reaching the 9th would still leave him the qualification to charge a foundation establishment. For a chi refining cultivator, 60 is the wall. Step into chi refining completion before 60, and your body and bloodline are still at their peak, and the charge is still possible. Of course, charging at foundation establishment is savagely dangerous, and one mistake shatters the meridians inch by inch, severs the Tao path, and kills you outright. It is still hope. Grandfather's one wish in this life is to see my father become the Jiang family's first foundation establishment cultivator. I left Green Bamboo Mountain fast. Heavenly Yang Mountain sits no more than 30 miles out. Besides it, the Jiang family holds 2 other peaks elsewhere because the spiritual chi on a vein is fixed, and cultivating too many fields on one vein starts eating into the chi itself. Heavenly Yang Mountain can carry 7 acres at the absolute most. The eastern wastelands are nothing but mountains and rivers, and demons and monsters are everywhere in them, forever killing and fighting human race cultivators for territory. Between Heavenly Yang Mountain and Green Bamboo Mountain, the Jiang family has exterminated most of the Yao beasts, though scattered ones still live in the ranges. My luck held, and the whole trip was quiet. An hour later, I reached it. Heavenly Yang Mountain runs over 300 meters high and is crimson from base to peak, with its waist wrapped in the energy screen of a formation. The moment I stepped onto it, the air was several degrees warmer than it should have been, and from the further peaks, the occasional beast roar carried across. Green bamboo sword, nether iron shield, both finally refined. I had owned exactly 1 low first grade offensive magical artifact before this, a green bamboo sword, and because I was going down the mountain, both artifacts grandfather gave me were medium first grade. One was a medium first grade green bamboo sword. Green bamboo grows everywhere around Green Bamboo Mountain, and some of it, fed on heaven and earth spiritual chi, turns into first grade spiritual wood outright, which makes it excellent artifact refining material. The other was defensive, forged from nether iron with the scales of a nether yin snake worked into it, and it is extremely tough. With enough spiritual power behind it, that shield will hold against a full strength strike from a chi refining 6th layer cultivator. Defensive artifacts are worth more than offensive ones. It had come to me already partly refined and controllable, and only now had I finished refining it properly. Wielding it as naturally as my own hand was going to take a great deal more practice. Once I settled in, the plan was to use the realm-breaking pearl and step into mid-stage chi refining. The bottle of essence origin pills grandfather gave me would push my cultivation up fast. After swallowing them, I might well touch the chi refining 5th layer, and after some polishing, I would simply be there. I came up the mountainside and stopped outside the formation. The crimson barrier flowed in the air while the heaven and earth spiritual chi around it condensed slowly and gathered power. A medium first grade formation, the 6-fold red flame array. Heavenly Yang Mountain is only a low first grade spiritual vein, and the Jiang family keeps a cultivator stationed on it to guard those 7 acres. My aura registered inside the formation, and a figure took shape behind the barrier, gray-robed hair and beard gone entirely white. He recognized me and remarked that the family had actually sent me out. That was Jiang Richeng. I bowed deeply and greeted him as Uncle Chung. The energy barrier twisted and opened a vortex wide enough for one person, and I stepped through and let it close over me. He told me I was being far too polite. The truth was that his old bones could not hold on any longer, and he could no longer carry any part of the family's burden. Having me working at my age meant the family had let me down. He shook his head while he said it. Uncle Chung is not grandfather's blood son. Back when grandfather came into an immortal cultivation technique and started up the immortal path as a loose cultivator, he spent more than a decade in and out of situations that should have killed him. Along the way, he found several like-minded friends who shared that life with him. By the time he was ready to found a family, all of them were dead. Loose cultivators have ill-fated destinies, and none of them knows what tomorrow holds. What they left behind was 3 bloodlines. The oldest of those children was 6. With their parents gone, grandfather was never going to walk past his friends' children. He asked them first, and then he adopted all 3, and across decades of hard weather, those children reached middle age, and their youth went. Somewhere in there, they came to see grandfather as their own father, and they carry the Jang family generation names. Uncle Chung counts as the eldest of the 2nd generation, nearly 60 this year. At the peak of the chi refining 6th layer, he fought one great battle that left hidden injuries in his body, and those injuries make reaching chi refining late stage impossible for him in this life. Most of his lifespan has already drained out of him. The limit for a chi refining cultivator is 120 years, and almost none of them ever see it. I told him the family owed him the apology, not the other way around, and that it was the younger generation being useless that had left him guarding fields with injuries in him. He weighed that off and said the family belongs to all of us and there was nothing more to say, and that heavenly Yang Mountain was mine now. Then he took me into the core of the 6-fold red flame array, where a plain thatched cottage stood. He told me the fields were the family's, that it was July, and that in under 3 months the spiritual rice would ripen. Until then, they were mine. I looked out across 7 acres of spiritual fields scattered in a kind of orderly disorder, threads of spiritual chi lifting off all of it. The crimson ears swayed in the wind and the smell of rice came across on the air. Scarlet Sun spiritual rice is a 1st grade spiritual seed, and with enough spiritual chi in the soil it will produce upper 1st grade grain. Because Heavenly Yang Mountain's vein is only low 1st grade, all 7 acres come in at low 1st grade. I told him the rice would not be delayed on my watch. Then he handed me the crimson formation plate for the 6-fold red flame array, told me to keep it safe, and said he had already erased the restriction inside so I should refine it now. I did, and it took me less time than burning an incense stick. Besides the plate, the core of the array also holds a medium 1st grade magical artifact, the Scarlet Flame Blade. If foreign enemies ever break in, I can drive that blade into a 100-foot arc of blade light, and the fire in it is enough to rival a chi refining 7th layer cultivator. The array had not been triggered in over a decade, so the energy banked inside it was extremely robust. He said he would not delay any further, told me once more to be careful in everything, handed over every matter concerning Heavenly Yang Mountain, and left. Heavenly Yang Mountain has only a low 1st grade vein, and the chi there is thin, and with the chi refining 6th layer realm and his injuries, the mountain could barely sustain his daily cultivation. His realm had started showing signs of slipping backward. I bowed and told him to take care, because for an elder who had emptied himself out for this family, I could not feel anything except respect. He waved a hand, dragged his ruined body around, and went slowly down the mountain, and I stood where I was and watched until he was completely gone. Then I went back into the cottage, refined the formation plate a 2nd time, and took full control of the 6-fold red flame array. At my cultivation, I still could not release its full power. Best possible moment to take the 4th layer. I sat down cross-legged, and the black and white pattern on the pearl at my chest began to flash. My thoughts shifted, and the energy inside it surged into my body all at once, and the spiritual chi in my meridians turned incredibly violent. The mid-stage chi refining bottleneck shattered in the space of a blink, and a powerful aura erupted out of me. The pearl broke the realm barrier outright and put me into the chi refining 4th layer. Mid-stage chi refining, 15 years old, with half a year still to go before my birthday. I circulated the heavenly fire flame art and let it refine the unstable aura running through my meridians, while the heaven and earth spiritual chi around me gathered in and hummed. The heavenly fire flame art is the Jang family's fire attribute chi refining technique. It cultivates fire attribute spiritual energy, and it can carry a man to chi refining perfection. It is the best fire attribute technique we own. As for foundation establishment stage techniques, the Jang family does not have any. My aura settled. The black and white energy inside the pearl was completely gone, and it had gone back to being pure white and flawless. Inside my sea of consciousness, the Chaos Taeguk visualization diagram kept turning, kept refining my divine soul, and with the 4th layer, my divine soul came up another step with it. An average chi refining 8th layer cultivator does not have a divine soul as strong as mine. I stabilized the realm, stood up, let the aura recede, and breathed out a mouthful of turbid chi. Then my expression changed, and then I started smiling. Breaking into mid-stage chi refining had made the pearl talk again. I could devour the flesh and blood of Yao beasts to charge it. Up to now, the realm-breaking pearl could only sip heaven and earth spiritual chi, which is why filling it took so long. Reaching the 4th layer had tightened my connection to it, and the energy inside it was now completely spent. Refilling it off ambient spiritual chi alone would take at least 5 years. Finding a spiritual land with genuinely dense energy would shorten that considerably. And now the pearl had gone through its first change. Yao beast flesh and blood charges it 10 times faster than ambient heaven and earth spiritual energy, which meant that if I hunted continuously, I could fill it in under a year. Once I reached chi refining 6th layer perfection, I could break straight into the 7th and stand in chi refining late stage. Better still, Yao beast flesh and blood does not only charge the pearl, it tempers my body, strengthens my meridians, and makes the whole frame tougher. If I ever get hold of a body refining technique, I could become a body cultivator and temper myself into something that does not break. With the pearl, I have no reason to fear the future. Cultivators have a great many minor realms, and every one of them falls to enough resources and enough time. It is the bottlenecks at middle stage and late stage, and the shackles between major realms that demand specific resources plus divine soul plus talent plus luck. The path of cultivation is genuinely cruel. A man whose luck runs short can hold several foundation establishment pills and still never reach foundation establishment. I still had grandfather's essence origin pills, so hunting could wait. The family's spiritual rice came first. 1 pill every 10 days would let me refine them all across 3 months, leave no pill toxin in my body, and keep my realm from destabilizing. That was the plan, which meant it was time to go look at the fields. A low 1st grade spiritual hoe appeared in my palm and I walked out into the crop. The smell of rice was everywhere. The ears hanging heavy and crimson, and the smell of turned soil under it, and the breeze coming through made the whole place feel absurdly peaceful. I brought the hoe down and broke a clod apart, and a fine wisp of spiritual chi flashed and vanished as the chi around it evened out. Then I pulled a weed up beside it. Spiritual fields hold spiritual chi, and even planted end to end with rice. Weeds get everywhere because the vitality of plants is relentless. Leave a field unguarded for 7 days, and weeds come up through the soil like bamboo shoots after spring rain and start competing with the rice for the chi in the ground. The yield drops and the harvest suffers, which is the whole reason a cultivator has to be stationed here at all. Heavenly Yang Mountain matters to the Jiang family, and it really wants a mid-stage chi refining cultivator on it. 7 acres yields somewhere around 32,000 pounds of spiritual rice, and at the absolute ceiling it will not clear 33,000 unless the spiritual chi surges. 1 low-grade spirit stone buys 10 pounds of low-grade spiritual rice, which means a matured scarlet sun crop brings the Jiang family over 3,000 low-grade spirit stones. Not that the arithmetic is that clean. Half of it goes to brewing for the next batch of spiritual wine, and the family's cultivators have to be paid their stipends out of the rest. Keeping a faction standing eats a truly obscene amount of everything. An hour in, I had sweat on my forehead, and 2 acres inspected, every weed pulled, and a fair number of spiritual insects killed where they had been chewing on the ears. A 1st grade spiritual plant farmer only gets 2 skills: the cloud rain technique, which calls up water vapor and rains on a small area, and the Kyong metal finger, which obliterates spiritual insects into powder. The scattered flesh seeps into the field and slowly improves its fertility. My realm was steadying as I worked, and the spiritual energy in my meridians was getting more refined. 5 spiritual roots means I can only cultivate about 2 hours a day at the chi refinement stage. Other roots run slightly longer, and even a heavenly spiritual root will not exceed 4 hours a day at this stage, because meridians that young cannot take more. Another hour and I had half the fields done, having thrown the Kyung metal finger and the cloud rain technique more times than I could count. On the strength of my divine soul, both went straight to minor achievement. A cultivator's techniques run beginner, minor achievement, major achievement, and perfection. And with the Chaos Taeguk visualization diagram behind my divine soul and my comprehension ability where it is, that progression moves fast, which made me a low 1st grade spiritual plant farmer already. Push both skills to major achievement and I would be medium 1st grade. Accelerating the growth of spiritual plants or perceiving their pathways was still out of reach, and with cultivation rising and proficiency climbing, it was only a question of when. I sat down cross-legged right there in the field to restore my spiritual energy. Wisps of it flowed steadily into the pearl at my chest, which had already begun showing a trace of black and white again. In my sea of consciousness, the black and white Taeguk turned like a chaotic divine millstone and kept grinding at my divine soul. 2 days took all 7 acres, weeds pulled, insects crushed, and the crimson ears left looking brighter than before, with the smell of the rice carrying across everything. After that, once the day's cultivation was done, I practiced spells. The Cloud Rain technique and the Gyeong Metal Finger both count as offensive spells in a pinch. The Heavenly Fire Flame art carries 2 of its own, which I had taken to beginner when I first cultivated it and now pushed toward minor achievement. All of it was for combat capability. I'd also worked the green bamboo sword and the nether iron shield until both moved as obediently as my own arms. 3 months went by. Every 10 days I swallowed an essence origin pill, and my cultivation climbed the whole way. The cloud rain technique and the Kyong metal finger both broke into major achievement, which made me a medium first grade spiritual plant farmer. And that is what a powerful divine soul buys you. Both spells inside the heavenly fire flame art reached minor achievement, and somewhere in there my cultivation quietly stepped into chi refining 4th layer perfection. My aura was stable enough that a cultivator freshly into chi refining late stage might not be able to read my true realm. The last essence origin pill went down. It would not be long before the 5th layer. I walked out of the cottage and looked at the ears. The Scarlet Sun spiritual rice was starting to ripen, and by the calendar, somebody from the family should be arriving. So I decided to start without them, because after the harvest the fields still had to be reclaimed, and their fertility restored before new spiritual seeds could go in, and that is an enormous job. The 5th layer could wait. I took a cold gleaming sickle out of the storage pouch and went back into the crop in white robes, and the standing ears went down in neat rows. For 2 hours I worked like a farmer with 40 years behind him, the sickle flashing. Then I stopped, sat down, and started recovering my spiritual power. The rice was mature and the formation was up, and I still had to stay alert, because money moves people. Tens of thousands of pounds of spiritual rice is an enormous resource to any other chi refining family, and it is a fortune to loose cultivators who live by the blade. The Jiang family sits at the bottom of the 12 chi refining families of Nongya County, which makes us exactly the kind of target that attracts appetite. My spiritual power was half spent. With harvest season here, I needed to keep combat capability in reserve. A quarter of an hour later, the array roared. 3 powerful auras erupted above Heavenly Yang Mountain, 3 cultivators driving their own magical artifacts into the formation like they meant to tear it open. The energy curtain dimmed fast. I was on my feet with the formation plate in hand and moving to the array's core before I had finished thinking about it. Spiritual power poured into the plate, and the 6-fold red flame array steadied instantly under my hands. Their leader was a gray-robed old man with a sour face, and shock went across it. He said aloud that this was impossible, that chi-refining 4th layer could not be right, that I was 5 spiritual roots, and asked whether my cultivation speed was really that fast. I read them while he was doing it. The old man was mid-stage chi-refining. Of the other 2, one was 3rd layer and one was 4th. By their clothing, all 3 were loose cultivators who lived by the blade. Killing intent went through me. The Jiang family was still weak enough to make men like this hungry. I burned all 3 faces into memory. I was not anxious in the slightest. Spirit stones appeared in my palm and crumbled straight to dust, as pure spiritual power poured into me, and I began restoring myself while I worked the formation and defended steadily. Inside the storage pouch, the transmission talisman my father gave me had already shattered. Now it was only a question of whether these 3 would leave or stay. My father was chi-refining 8th layer, and in a quarter of an hour he could cut his way from Green Bamboo Mountain to Heavenly Yang Mountain. My realm had clearly caught them off guard. With Uncle Chung still holding this mountain, they would never have moved at all. Injured or not, he was chi-refining 6th layer with the formation behind him, and one careless moment could have gotten them killed instead. But the rice was ripe and the mountain was being held by a boy at chi-refining 3rd layer, which was more temptation than the old man could refuse. Break it open and tens of thousands of pounds of rice converts to over 2,000 spirit stones, and resources like that might carry him to chi-refining 7th layer and late stage. As for offending the Jiang family, with that much benefit sitting in front of him, everything else went out of his head. Get clear of Jiang territory afterward, and what could the Jiang family possibly do about it? Plans do not survive contact. This boy had broken through and become a mid-stage chi-refining cultivator, and a mid-stage cultivator holding a formation is not the same animal as an early stage one holding it. The difficulty of cracking it had multiplied several times over. One of them asked the old man what they were doing now. The boy obviously had a transmission talisman, he said, and Green Bamboo Mountain already knew, and the Jiang family's chi-refining late-stage cultivator could be here in under a quarter of an hour. Then he asked whether the old man was certain he could break the formation and kill the target inside that window. He was talking very fast and doing the arithmetic out loud. The other one added that even if they broke the array right now, the rice was not fully harvested and there would be no time to take it. Then he said flatly that they should retreat, because they had no chance left. The old man looked at the energy still packed into the 6-fold red flame array and sighed inwardly with regret going across his face, and told them they were leaving. They were blinded by profit and they were not reckless men. With no opening, they simply pulled out. Today had already angered the Jiang family, and weakest chi-refining family or not, we were not something 3 loose cultivators could safely provoke. If they wanted to keep breathing, they needed to be out of Jiang territory as fast as legs would carry them. Any other loose cultivator would have rated the old man's plan as very likely to work, which is exactly why they had risked it. The variable they discounted was the one that broke them, and what they discounted was me. They had gone to steal a chicken and come away lighter than when they started. Inside the array, my expression never moved. I watched them run with a mind like still water. Right now, the scarlet sun spiritual rice on those 7 acres was the single most precious thing on this mountain, and 3 loose cultivators were a minor irritation. My cultivation would grow, and sooner or later, I would be able to kill them. Besides, for all I knew, the retreat was theater meant to draw me out. I was not going to be careless. Safety and steadiness first. The 3 of them covered 1,000 meters, and I still had not moved so much as a finger, and doubt started working across the old man's face. He wondered aloud whether this boy was not being a little too cautious. One of the others said this one seemed to have a careful temperament, unlike most young men, and would not underestimate an enemy or rush out. Time was running out, he added, and the Jiang family's late-stage cultivators would arrive if they waited any longer. His voice had gone tight. They had only been testing to see whether they could lure me out of the formation, and it was obvious by then that I was not coming. The old man gave it up entirely and said they were going, and the 2 behind him let out a breath. Staying meant dying somewhere without a grave. All 3 of them ran. Then a streak of flowing light came out of the distance at appalling speed and cut across their escape route. A crimson spiritual sword crossed the air and came down at the gray-robed old man. He shouted a question about how the Jiang family had gotten here this fast, drenched in sweat. Black light swirled up out of his palm as a black bead rose and threw a barrier of energy over his body. The crimson sword hit it. Cracks raced across the barrier fast enough to watch, and it blew apart. He had just gotten a white bone club up when the sword came through again, and a hideous gash opened across his chest and stomach, and the blood came out in a sheet. Heavily wounded in one exchange, the man holding that sword was my father. His aura was enormous, and he was in high spirits, and the killing intent standing off him was awe-inspiring. He had made the 9th layer. The old man saw it, and endless regret went through his eyes. My father did not change expression. The crimson sword whistled out a second time. A head went up into the air, and the body came down without it. He collected the man's storage pouch, flicked a finger, and a fireball burned the corpse down to a pile of ash. Then he set off unhurried after the other 2. I felt them coming. Outside the formation, 2 loose cultivators were running straight at Heavenly Yang Mountain, and off the fragments of the shattered transmission talisman, a familiar aura was drifting. My father's aura. I felt a grin pull at the corner of my mouth, and I stepped out of the formation without hesitating. The green bamboo sword came out as a streak of green light and cut horizontally across them. 2 fingers of my left hand went pale gold, and a 1-inch Gyeong metal finger beam shot straight at the forehead of the 3rd layer man. They were startled and they reacted fast, raising their artifacts and throwing spells and charging me. Earlier they had tried to lure me out and I had refused, and now here I was in the open, and they took it as an insult. A family cultivator who had never been outside, who only knew how to sit and cultivate, trying to fight 2 men at once was a fantasy. They were loose cultivators with genuinely rich combat experience, and if they could pin me fast enough, the man chasing them might hold back for my sake, and that was a sliver of survival. On the first exchange, both their faces changed. The 4th layer man went back several steps, badly shaken, and said out loud that spiritual energy this majestic could not belong to somebody who had just broken into the chi-refining 4th layer. The 3rd layer man fell into a losing position immediately, and his situation got dangerous fast. I did not change expression. I threw the Gyeong metal finger 4 times running, and each one landed heavier than the last. Then his body went rigid. A bloody hole opened between his brows, and the blood came out of it. My spiritual energy is majestic and overbearing, and its concentration runs several times what cultivators at my level carry. That was my first real fight. With actual combat experience behind me, that 3rd layer man would not have survived a single strike. 1 down, and I kept going with my face still. The green bamboo sword drew arcs of light while my spiritual energy flowed without a break, cutting off the 4th layer man's retreat, and I kept throwing the Gyeong metal finger at his limbs. He went pale, swinging that white bone club into the green bamboo sword over and over, energy sparking off in every direction. 5 breaths later, the Gyeong metal finger caught his left knee and shattered the kneecap. His body tilted, the black bead's energy went to its maximum, and light swirled in his storage pouch as he groped for something. Skyfire sword. Fire attribute spiritual energy erupted along the green bamboo sword, and I cut out a 10-foot arc of fire attribute sword glow. The black barrier shattered, the crimson light swept through, and it went across his neck. Blood sprayed and he was dead where he stood. The Skyfire sword is a technique inside the Heavenly Fireflame art, and it is powerful and carries a vicious edge. First battle, clean and efficient, and 2 loose cultivators dead. I took a chi recovery pill out of the storage pouch, and felt the spiritual energy start rebuilding through my meridians, and my father walked over unhurried while I did it. I settled myself and smiled at him. Then I searched both corpses, took their storage pouches, went over them a second time, put 2 fireballs off my fingertips into the bodies, and burn them to ash. I asked him whether he had arrived a long time ago. My voice came out very calm. He nodded and said he had. The harvest days were right about now, and he had come a day early, which confirmed what I already suspected. Ninth layer or not, he could not have covered that ground in that time from a standing start. And for my part, if I had not sensed his aura first, I would never have stepped outside the formation to kill anybody. He told me I had done well and that my performance had pleased him very much, and there was real pride under it. 3 months and I had walked into the chi refining 4th layer. I had not fallen for their bait and left the formation, which showed composure, and I had put the family's fields above everything else. And the moment the tide turned, I had gone straight out and fought 2 men and killed both. He was satisfied and he said so twice. At his speed, after killing that 6th layer man, those 2 could never have outrun him. He had watched the direction they were running and deliberately held his hand. He simply wanted to see what I would choose. I told him I only charged out because I had sensed his aura and that otherwise I would never have stepped out at all. I sounded very humble about it. The truth is that if I had met those 3 in open country with no fields to guard, I would have taken all 3 and killed them. That is not bravado. My divine soul is worth a chi refining 8th layer cultivators, and the spiritual chi the heavenly fire flame art produces is domineering and intensely aggressive. What I badly wanted was a divine soul technique, because once cultivated I could attack with the divine soul itself and kill men invisibly. Anything less is wasting what I have. He called it prudent without lacking an edge, and left it there. As for how I had reached the 4th layer in 3 months, he did not ask. Everyone is entitled to secrets. My usual pace already looked like a 3-element spiritual roots, and the family had stopped finding that remarkable a long time ago. I told him the rice was ripe and we should harvest immediately before anything else went wrong. With him at chi refining 9th layer, the family's strength had jumped. The Jiang family now had 2 9th layer cultivators over it. He told me to recover and leave the work to him, and we walked back into the array together. A sickle appeared in his hand, cold light along the edge, an upper 1st grade spiritual sickle that cuts fast. I did not stand on ceremony since more than half my spiritual chi was gone after that fight, and I sat down and recovered. A quarter of an hour later, he had half an acre down. With most of my energy back, I brought out my own sickle and we harvested together. He is not only a 9th layer cultivator, but an upper 1st grade spiritual plant farmer, and his speed is genuinely absurd. 2 hours later, the 2 of us had taken all 7 acres. He produced 5 storage pouches and we packed the stalks and grain into them together, to be threshed by clansmen once it reached the family. Some of the rice would be sold, some stored, and the rest brewed. The leftover stalks still carry faint spiritual chi, so they get ground up and mixed into feed for spiritual birds, and the family keeps several dozen spiritual chickens that eat those stalks every year. The foundation of a chi refining family is thin enough that nothing gets thrown away. He gave me 100 pounds of Scarlet Sun spiritual rice and 50 spirit stones, said the family was in difficulty, and Heavenly Yang Mountain was going to depend on me, and sighed. Uncle Chung's injuries were too severe, and he needed rest. Green Bamboo Mountain needed my father and grandfather on it, and the family's mid-stage chi refining cultivators were scarce, and all of them already busy, otherwise nobody would have sent a 4th layer boy down the mountain. I told him to rest easy and leave the mountain to me. The rice and the stones were compensation, and a drop in the bucket, and they still meant something. He said the family owed me, and that once this batch of rice sold, he and grandfather would set aside spirit stones to buy medicinal pills for me. Then he took spiritual seeds out of his pouch. I was to carefully adjust the chi in the fields over the coming days, tell them completely to hold their fertility, and sow when the time was right. I nodded and told him I was a medium 1st grade spiritual plant farmer now and would like the manual for the more advanced spiritual planting techniques. He handed me a book, remarked that most families have a copy and it is still a priceless treasure to a loose cultivator, and told me to burn it the moment I had it memorized. I said I understood. Then we said nothing further, and he left, and Heavenly Yang Mountain went quiet again. I started eroding the restrictions on the 2 storage pouches. Both were low 1st grade with very weak restrictions, and with my divine soul it took about a dozen breaths to erase them, and then I dumped out everything inside. 2 low 1st grade magical artifacts, 28 spirit stones, 3 medicinal pills, and assorted junk. Loose cultivators really are broke. Still, a mosquito's leg is meat. Everything I own now came to close to 300 spirit stones. Between those 2 artifacts and my old low 1st grade green bamboo sword, I now held 3 low 1st grade magical artifacts I had no use for. When I next left the mountain, I could sell all 3 and convert them into cultivation resources. Then I sat down with my father's spiritual planting book. With my divine soul and my comprehension ability, I had the whole thing committed in under a day, and after that only practice remained. I checked the formation again and let out a breath. The 6-fold red flame array had taken no damage and had barely spent any of its stored energy. and I was glad I had not rashly triggered the Scarlet Flame Blade. The array can fully unleash that blade 3 times, and each release lands like a chi-refining late-stage attack. That is the Jang family's backing and the thing that keeps outside enemies nervous. If it can be spared, it gets spared. Everything settled, my spiritual chi back at its peak. I turned and looked at the fields. With the rice off them, the fertility was already thin, and the roots and stalks were still in the ground, so the whole 7 acres needed tilling. I also had to grind spirit stones into fine powder and scatter it evenly across the whole thing to bring the fertility back, and only then could new seed go in. An enormous undertaking. The next morning, the sun came up and poured gold over the Crimson Mountain, and I put the spiritual hoe on my shoulder in white robes and started reclaiming land. Dark soil turned over, the straw roots inside it crushed, wisps of spiritual chi weaving together and holding the balance of the chi around them. Where a patch had gone thin, I crushed spirit stone fragments to powder and scattered them straight over it. Everything moved in order. Every time that hoe came down, I put my whole body into it, and my cultivation base kept getting tempered by the work, and the spiritual power in my meridians got steadily purer. Somewhere in there, my realm had quietly stepped into chi-refining 4th layer perfection, because reclaiming a spiritual field is its own kind of cultivation. Every day was full, 4 hours and more circulating my technique and drawing in heaven and earth, spiritual chi, and the rest of it on spells, artifacts, and dirt. 10 days and all 7 acres were turned, the thin patches replenished, and spiritual chi from the vein was seeping back down into the soil and restoring it. By my estimate, another half month would put the fertility where spiritual seeds could go in, and then I could sow the scarlet sun and stop working quite this hard. In the gaps, I had memorized every word in the spiritual plant register and burned the book to ash. The cloud rain technique and the Kyong metal finger were both climbing toward major achievement, and taking them to perfection would make me an upper 1st grade spiritual plant farmer. I sat down and let the spiritual power flow back into me, and a quarter of an hour later, I was at peak condition. Time to start hunting Yao beasts. With the scarlet sun harvested, the fields held nothing worth stealing, which meant I could move around. As long as I stayed inside a 3-mile radius and kept the 6-fold red flame array safe, it was fine, because even if somebody triggered it, I could be back in almost no time. I walked out of the formation to the foot of the mountain and took a long black incense stick the thickness of a chopstick out of my storage pouch and flicked it alight. Sandalwood smoke drifted away on the breeze in every direction. Monster-attracting incense. It pulls Yao beasts in from miles out, and mine was only low 1st grade, so it would draw low 1st grade beasts with some chance of a medium 1st grade one. The range beside Nongya County is the Purple Dust Mountain Range. The eastern wastelands are vast past counting and full of ranges large and small, and the Purple Dusk holds a great many spiritual mountains of its own. Green Bamboo Mountain sits at the outermost edge, in the weakest region. Within 30 miles of Green Bamboo Mountain, the upper 1st grade Yao beasts have all been killed. Low 1st grade ones are common, and medium 1st grade ones are extremely rare. Mortals cannot cross that wilderness at all. 30 miles is an enormous area, and the beasts are scattered thin across it, and I did not have time to go hunting further afield, which is exactly what monster-attracting incense is for. I concealed myself, sat down cross-legged, took the green bamboo sword in hand, and waited for them to come to me. A quarter of an hour later, the quiet in the distance broke, and a low 1st grade blazing fire python came sliding into view. The smell of that incense is a fatal temptation to a Yao beast. The python ran about a meter, crimson from end to end with black patterning down its body, fire power leaking slowly out of its open mouth, its eyes crimson and cold. Blazing fire pythons are fire attribute and carry potent venom. From behind the boulder I moved before I was visible, and the green bamboo sword shot out like a loosed bolt. A low 1st grade Yao beast is not a fight for me. Green sword light flickered and crossed the distance, and reached the space between its eyes in an instant. The python twisted and threw its mouth wide and spat firepower at the blade, buying itself a sliver of a chance, and hauled straight backward. A medium 1st grade magical artifact was never something it could handle. My thoughts shifted, and the sword changed direction and drove through the vital spot 7 inches below its head, and the blood came out and it died without managing a sound. A low 1st grade Yao beast cannot survive one strike from me. As I am now, ordinary chi-refining 6th layer cultivators are not my match. I swept the area, and the 2 fingers of my left hand glowed faint gold, and put 2 beams into the carcass, leaving 2 bloody holes. Snakes and pythons hold on to life with disgusting tenacity, and a dead one will still sometimes come back at you. When it stayed motionless, I finally relaxed. Fangs, scales, and the poison sac. All good material. I put the body away, went back behind the rock, and got to work on it, stripping out everything useful before dropping the carcass into the storage pouch. Then my thoughts shifted, and a wisp of black and white light flickered off the pearl at my chest, ran down my fingertips and into the pouch, and the carcass went the way snow goes in spring. I could feel the energy inside the realm-breaking pearl jump by several wisps on the spot. 10 times ambient heaven and earth spiritual energy, exactly as promised. Keep hunting and I would have the pearl back at full charge before long. And the instant it swallowed that carcass, the Chaos Taegyuk visualization diagram, which had been sitting quiet in my sea of consciousness, dumped a surge of information into me. I stopped where I was, and then I could not keep the delight off my face. From here I would not have to fear a chi-refining late-stage cultivator. An instant later, a powerful aura erupted several dozen meters away. A tiger 3 meters tall and purple across every inch of it came into the open, ferocious malevolence rolling off it into the air, and its eyes settled slowly on the monster attracting incense. I caught it out of the corner of my eye. Purple Spirit Tiger. The Purple Spirit Tiger is a genuinely vicious Yao beast with a powerful body and speed that does not match its size. It carries 2 attributes, fire and metal, which among low-grade Yao beasts leaves it with almost no weaknesses at all. The one in front of me was medium first grade, and my estimate was that even a chi-refining 6th-layer cultivator would find it a serious headache. It looked at the monster attracting incense and rage went through its eyes, and then it came across and stamped the stick to splinters with one paw. After that it swept the ground around it looking for the cultivator, because an item like that obviously belongs to one and obviously exists to lure beasts in. Humans in Yao have fought grand battles over cultivation resources and spiritual veins since before anyone was counting. We are mortal enemies and neither side pretends otherwise. I kept my face still and went straight out at it. The green bamboo sword whistled forward with a wisp of crimson light turning along the blade as fire attribute energy erupted through it, and I put the Skyfire sword into the side of its neck. It roared, and there was contempt in its eyes. Its paws turned savage, violent power surged, and my attack came apart against them. Chi refining 6th-layer power, exactly as advertised. I stopped taking chances and brought the nether iron shield up in front of me. Its paws flashed with metal and fire together and condensed a giant claw a meter across. That tore the air open coming at me. The shield rose and took it head on, energy spilling off in every direction. I drove the green bamboo sword back out with another Skyfire sword aimed at the back of its neck. Alongside it, the Kyung metal finger went out silently, like a hidden weapon, straight for its eyes. I wanted it blind. It had far too much battle experience for that. It leaped and lashed out with its tail, and the green bamboo sword took the hit square, its spiritual light dimming as it came flying back at me. Then, those massive purple paws came down again and again against the finger beams, sounding like metal striking metal, sparks scattering everywhere, and my whole attack was wiped out. That body is comparable to a medium first-grade magical artifact. Aside from a weak divine soul, that beast has almost nothing to exploit. I kept my expression flat as the sword returned to my side, stirred my spiritual energy, and pulled out another blaze of sword light. Then I charged, because the noise we were making had already drawn far too much attention, and I needed this finished. Endless rage came up in its eyes. Sword in one hand and shield in the other, I traded with it wildly, throwing Chong metal finger beams the entire time, and 3 fireball talismans appeared in my palm, all low first grade, all meant purely to break its judgment. The finger beams kept going into its weak points until specks of blood were blooming across it, and the injuries only made it wilder and its combat power climbed with its temper. Then the talisman shattered, and 3 fireballs the size of a man's head erupted and swallowed it whole. And inside my divine soul, black and white streams of light gathered and condensed into black and white divine needles. One went out like a strand of hair, silent, cutting through space. It moved like light and shadow, passed straight through the blazing energy, and arrived between the tiger's brows before the tiger knew anything had happened. It drove into the head, and an enormous surge of divine soul power swept out of it, and that weak divine soul shattered on contact. The whole ferocious animal simply locked in place with endless unwillingness in its eyes, and then it came down hard. I moved fast, stowed the corpse, picked up every fragment of the monster-attracting incense one by one, and went back to Heavenly Yang Mountain at speed. Inside the formation I sat down, swallowed a medicinal pill for spiritual energy, and started recovering while the heaven and earth spiritual energy rushed in, and the chaos in my meridians settled. A quarter of an hour later I opened my eyes. That tiger's combat power was no joke, and I had a lingering cold feeling about it. I was only chi refining 4th layer, and decent combat strength or not, killing a chi refining 6th layer purple spirit tiger should have cost me heavily. It could easily have left me badly wounded. What saved me was that the moment the realm-breaking pearl swallowed that blazing fire python, the Chaos Taegyuk visualization diagram had handed me a divine soul technique. Black and white divine needles. My divine soul was already extraordinary from years of that diagram grinding at it, and my comprehension ability is not ordinary either. Cultivating a divine soul technique multiplied what I could do in a fight. The black and white divine needles have no tier at all. I used divine soul power to condense 1, and it destroys another being's divine soul without noise and without trace. At the moment, my divine soul can hold 3 of them, and the number will keep climbing as my cultivation does. One day they might gather into a black and white river of stars and pour down like the waters of heaven, grand and unbroken, wiping out the souls of more creatures than I could count. Best of all, once condensed, a needle never disappears, and the Chaos Taegeuk visualization diagram tempers them every moment, which means their power stays exactly level with my own divine soul power. Mine currently rivals a chi refining 8th layer cultivators, so the needles hit like one. And once a needle enters a sea of consciousness, the target's divine soul cannot stop it, because Chaos Taegeuk power is enough to twist anything. Shatter a low-rank cultivator's divine soul, and the body left behind is an empty husk. The tiger was powerful, and its divine soul was exceptionally weak, which is the only reason I killed it in one strike by annihilating that soul outright. The needles come from the same source as the diagram, and my comprehension is what it is, so I understood the technique instantly and condensed the first one on the spot. That purple spirit tiger became the first thing it ever killed. While I recovered, all of Heavenly Yang Mountain stayed quiet, and I let out a breath. In front of the thatched hut, I worked fast and took the tiger apart. Teeth, whip, tail, claws, and bones. And I kept the bones because tiger bone can be soaked in liquor. I stripped out every useful resource plus nearly 30 pounds of tiger meat, and then let the realm-breaking pearl devour the rest of the flesh and blood. The black and white energy inside it climbed fast enough to watch, and I could not stop smiling. The python had not registered much. This time, the instant the pearl finished, a warm wave of chi surged through me, and I could feel my body strengthening by degrees, while impurities burned out of it. My physique reached the peak of medium first grade, which already put me past what an ordinary chi refining 6th layer cultivator carries, and then the pearl's power pushed it straight into upper first grade, a body worth the chi refining 7th layer, on a man at the 4th. And the physical jump triggered a cultivation breakthrough on top of it. I took the formation plate and went back to the cottage, because the spiritual chi in my meridians was already overflowing. Sitting cross-legged with a spirit stone in my palm, I absorbed the chi out of it as fast as it would come, and everything simply fell into place with no resistance anywhere. A dozen breaths later, my aura surged and settled, heavier than it had been. Chi refining 5th layer, with 3 months still to go before my 16th birthday. At that rate, the 6th layer was going to take 2 years at minimum. I circulated the heavenly fire flame art and kept refining, and my speed was easily a 3-element spiritual roots now, and Heavenly Yang Mountain's heaven and earth spiritual energy simply could not feed it. I needed resources, so the plan became simple. Finish the day's cultivation, then hunt, bank the Yao Beast materials, and trade them for cultivation resources when my annual rotation took me home. My birthday falls on New Year's Eve, which made the timing convenient. After that, I settled into a routine that did not change from one day to the next. Cultivate, then burn monster-attracting incense, and kill whatever came. A month went quietly by and the haul was decent. Over 20 low first-grade Yao Beasts and 5 medium first-grade ones, and between that and the ambient spiritual chi still trickling in, the pearl was already more than half charged. I also ate extremely well, because when the spiritual chi ran short, I ate Yao Beast meat instead. By then I had filled out into something solid and tall, and my cultivation kept climbing steadily, and my divine soul power reached a chi refining 9th layer cultivators. The Chaos Taegeuk visualization diagram works on me like a chaos god devil turning a millstone, endlessly grinding at my soul. 3 black and white divine needles were condensed by then, and constant tempering had left them shining with a cold metallic gleam. Everything was moving the right direction. The 7 acres had recovered their fertility under my hands, so it was time to sow. 2 days put the scarlet sun seed into the ground, with the cloud rain technique cast over and over until the rainwater had soaked in properly. I also kept working the firepower of the 6-fold red flame array to hold the temperature where the seed wanted it. By the time it was all settled, 3 days had gone. After that, there was nothing to do but wait for the seed to break soil. So I packed up, opened a transmission talisman, and sent word to the family head. My father had left me several more talismans when he came. My second uncle, Jiang Riang, is the family's talisman master at medium first grade, and transmission talismans are cheap enough that he keeps a stack of them purely to practice on. Half an hour later, my father arrived with Huijiam. The moment he saw me, his eyes flickered with shock, and he asked whether I had broken through again. I told him it was luck, that I had killed a purple spirit tiger, and that between eating Yao Beast meat every day and clearing the fields, I had simply happened to break through. Then I waved at Huijiam and apologized for making him hold the mountain alone. Heavenly Yang Mountain's vein is low first grade, I pointed out, so it would not slow his cultivation at all. If he worked at it, he might even reach the chi refining 3rd layer while he was here. He pulled a sour face at that and told me to remember to bring him a gift when I came back. It was his first time off Green Bamboo Mountain, and underneath the sulking he was plainly thrilled. and I was right about the mountain. There was nothing left on it worth stealing now, so nobody would be looking at it. My father gave me a long look and did not comment on the breakthrough. Instead, he told me grandfather would be 89 after the new year, that his blood and chi were past their peak, and that the family would be run by my father from here on. Then he said my talent was extraordinary and the family would not hold me back for long. He would train up another mid-stage chi refining cultivator as fast as he could, so I could leave this place. Taking the family's weight off grandfather had taught him exactly how hard the Jiang family has to work to keep existing. I had already shown him what I might become, and he was not willing to spend his own son on it. I told him I understood, and that our family was going to keep getting better. I said it calmly, because I meant it. We were scraping by and our clansmen were few. Once my strength came up and the third generation grew into itself, none of this would look the same. Right now the Jiang family is short of resources and short of people both. Counting every chi refining cultivator we have, the total does not reach 20. Building a family is brutally hard, and grandfather walked on thin ice for decades to get us this far. After the new year, he would formally step down and hand the clan chief's seat to my father. Past 60, a chi refining cultivator loses the qualification to strive for foundation establishment, and blood and chi decline from there. Grandfather was 88, and his youth had left his body full of hidden injuries, and nobody could say whether he would see 100. I handed Hui Diem the formation plate and the transmission talisman, and with my father's agreement I left Heavenly Yang Mountain, and he left too. The Yao beasts within 3 miles of that mountain were essentially all dead by my hand, so burning more incense there would only waste it. The seed needed at least 10 days to break soil, and with the 6-fold red flame array up there was no danger for the moment. My own time outside was limited to half a month at the outside. Hugium is not a spiritual plant farmer. He had not reached chi refining 3rd layer yet, and he could not afford distraction. Chi refining family or not, we all understand that cultivation level is everything, and only from the 3rd layer can a man cultivate proper arts. So I left Heavenly Yang Mountain and started working my way along the Purple Dust Mountain range, since Green Bamboo Mountain sits at the edge of it. 3 miles out, the Yao beasts thickened up again, and I met several low 1st grade ones along the way and killed all of them. Dozens of fights had made me noticeably more efficient, and every movement was getting cleaner and more decisive. The Heavenly Fire Flame art ran the entire time, refining my meridians as I walked. Once I left Jiang territory, I started seeing signs of loose cultivators and eventually ran into some face-to-face. They caught my aura, made no move at all, and turned around and left. I had just killed a medium 1st grade green-tailed crocodile, kept what was useful, and fed the rest to the pearl. Constant fighting had started putting a trace of evil chi on me. I also found several spirit medicines and collected them to trade at home. 3 days took me 10 or 12 miles in every direction, and everything that appeared in front of me died. A chi refining 5th layer loose cultivator even tried to ambush me, and I killed him instead and came away with 2 low 1st grade magical artifacts and a dozen spirit stones. Loose cultivators really are that poor. A 5th layer cultivator without a single medium 1st grade artifact on him. The Jiang family is weak, and it is only a chi refining family, and there are still elders standing above me. Even tightening the belt, they hand down what a man actually needs. That is what a family is for. Fighting alone in the cultivation world is far too hard, and at low realms it barely shows, and as the realm climbs the resource requirements grow into something that breaks loose cultivators. Born into a chi refining family, my start was better than theirs by an amount I cannot measure, and inside the Jiang family I found something I had gone a whole previous life without. Family. As I stood then, a chi refining 8th layer cultivator would have gone down to a sneak attack from me. That is not bravado either. More importantly, on that day my Gyeong metal finger reached perfection, which put its output level with the chi refining 7th layer. The cloud rain technique sat at major achievement, not far off. Every basic spell a cultivator learns I had taken to major achievement by then. The Gyeong metal finger, the vine leaf technique, the water arrow technique, the fireball technique, and the earth wall 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 technique. The Gyeong metal finger is a metal attribute basic spell, overflowing with sharp energy and genuinely formidable offensively. And because I used it constantly, I had pushed it to perfection without noticing. A chi refining 9th layer cultivator might not manage that, because it takes an enormous amount of grinding. White robes speckled with mud by then, I stopped in front of a cave with my brows drawing together, because the air around it carried something familiar. My divine soul circulated inside my sea of consciousness, and then my eyes lit up. That was the aura of the purple spirit tiger, gone faint. This was its lair, and I wanted to know what was in it. I looked around while I thought. Yao beasts were already beginning to drift into the area, so I shifted position, restrained my aura, and hid in the trees. The tiger's scent was thinning by the hour, and every beast that had ever held a grudge against it was getting restless, which told me there was definitely something worth having inside that lair. 3 Yao beasts came up in front of it, an iron armor lion, a black armored tusk hound, and a crimson blood bear, all medium first grade. The hound was around chi refining 5th layer, and the lion and the bear were both at the 6th. The hound stared at the cave mouth with blood-red eyes full of hatred, because the tiger had nearly killed it once, and the tiger had not appeared in almost 20 days, which by any reasonable reading meant it was dead, whether at the hands of another beast or a cultivator. Not that it mattered to any of them. The lion and the bear were watching just as hungrily. All 3 knew there was a treasure inside that cave, and any one of them that got it might break its bottleneck and become an upper first grade Yao beast. Low intelligence or not, they also understood that fighting each other right now would be stupid. The hound went to the entrance on high alert, opened its jaws and spat a pitch-black sphere of energy the size of a head straight into the cave. Then it slid to the side of the opening to wait. The other 2 did the same. A tiger's roar came out of the lair, and a terrifying aura rolled out with it, and a purple spirit tiger 2 meters long came out into the light, purple from end to end, and her aura was noticeably weak. Cold purple eyes went across all 3 of them, warning them off. The hound had already retreated the moment it heard her. Back to the lion and the bear. 4 beasts stood facing each other in front of that cave, and the eagerness in the lion's and the bear's eyes was not hiding the intent to kill. Looking at how weak she read, I understood immediately, and something like excitement went through me. This was almost certainly the mate of the tiger I had killed. She held chi refining 6th layer strength, and her aura was thin as paper, and there was one obvious explanation. She had just given birth. The male had gone out hunting for food. My monster attracting incense had caught him, and I had killed him. If that was true, I needed one of those cubs. A purple spirit tiger has 2 attributes: formidable combat power and no real weakness, which makes it about the best war beast a cultivator can own. Rumor also says the purple spirit tiger carries the bloodline of the Jasso heavenly tiger, and that bloodline is extremely powerful. Even the weakest Jasso heavenly tiger can reach the 4th tier, which is a creature capable of standing against a human race golden core cultivator. The cubs had not been born long, which meant this was the ideal window for domestication. 6th layer or not, her body was in no condition, and the 3 of them surrounded her. The hound especially, blood-red eyes bright with excitement. The male must have fallen, or he would have shown himself long before now. Today was its day. It lunged, claws flashing cold, tearing for her throat, and the bear and the lion came in behind it without hesitating. They were at odds with each other, and right now they had one shared enemy, and once she was dealt with, they could argue about the treasure. The 4 of them came together, and violent power swept out in every direction. The ground cracked open in lines, trees snapped, and broken branches and leaves went up into the air. In the space of a blink, more than a dozen appalling wounds opened across her body, and the blood came out and dyed the purple red. She was weak, and there was not a trace of fear anywhere in her, only anger and cold. Her claws kept landing. She fought all 3 of them for her territory and did not give ground. The world of Yao beasts is exactly that cruel. Show one exploitable opening and every old enemy you have will take it. The human race is no different. I watched all of it from the trees, waiting, holding my aura down to nothing, because if I were exposed, those 3 would turn on me the same instant. Her injuries stacked up. Fury does not let one animal beat 3. The hound was hurt too, and its eyes were still bright, and it had also started paying attention. It was a clear step weaker than the lion and the bear, and it knew it would be their next target the moment she went down. It was already planning its exit. The lion and the bear grew up on slaughter, and understood that perfectly well. They kept part of their attention on each other while they killed her, because a cornered animal at the end can still take somebody with it. I waited for the 3 of them to settle it, because that would be my moment. Then my brows came together and I pushed myself deeper into cover and stopped leaking anything at all, because I had picked up 2 faint auras on the far side, human race cultivators. My divine soul already rivals a chi refining 9th layer cultivators, and without that I would never have sensed them. Loose cultivators, or somebody's family. 4 Yao beasts fighting makes an enormous amount of noise, and it had clearly pulled somebody in. This was outside Jiang territory, with plenty of loose cultivators mixed through it, and other chi refining families holding ground nearby. If I remembered correctly, the family adjacent to ours is the Ho family. They are not weak, sitting mid-tier among the 12 chi refining families of Nanya County, with 5 chi refining late-stage cultivators, and 2 of those at the 9th layer. We now had 2 at the 9th as well, and our overall strength was still behind theirs. The relationship between us has never been good, because our spheres of influence sit too close together for it to be anything else. All of that was guesswork. I kept watching and kept both auras locked. They thought they were well hidden, and they had been exposed for a while. The Chaos Taeguk visualization diagram did not only make my divine soul powerful, it also made me much better at hiding, to the point where a chi refining completion cultivator who was not paying close attention would walk past me. When two animals lock horns, the man in the trees eats. The only question was who the man in the trees turned out to be. Something cold went through me. Inside my sea of consciousness, 3 black and white divine needles glinted, ready. Surrounded and bleeding from everywhere, the tigress suddenly bloomed with endless purple light. In her speed and power both jumped. Panic crossed the hound's blood-red eyes. An enormous claw tore its throat open and ripped away more than half its skull, and the blood went up like a fountain. The lion and the bear both flinched. She was already moving, faster than before, and she was on the lion in a blink. The bear flinched again and then relaxed, watching her go for the lion instead, and looked at the hound's corpse with open contempt. Chi refining 5th layer, and it had thought this was its battlefield. Then purple light flowed behind her and materialized into 3 ferocious blades of purple fire that evaporated the moisture straight out of the air. They took a wedge formation and closed around the bear in an instant and sealed its retreat, and not one of the 3 was weaker than a chi refining 7th layer strike. That was a dying blow, and she had burned her own bloodline to throw it. The bear's neck, chest, and arms all took it head on, and the blood sprayed out and it went from fighting to hanging by a thread in one motion. Her claws hit the lions, and the sparks went everywhere, and the violent force threw her clear, and she came down on the ground and stopped breathing. One killing effort. The hound dead, the bear crippled, the lion was the last one standing, and before it could collect anything, 2 figures came out of the trees. One of them, a middle-aged cultivator with open delight on his face, drove a black dharma sword straight at the lion's head. The younger one behind him was just as excited. He had clearly not expected the day to hand him something like this. Ho family cultivators, exactly as I had guessed. I held my breath and watched them. The middle-aged one was chi refining 7th layer. The blue-robed youth was 5th, the same as me. Both drove their magical artifacts in on the lion. Uncle and nephew, out walking, and they had stumbled into a feast laid out by heaven. The hound and the tigress were dead. The bear had under 1/10 of its combat power left, and only the lion was still standing. In their hands that was fish on a chopping block. Fear went across the lion's eyes, and underneath it was pure unwillingness. 7th layer and 5th layer together. There was no version of that fight it wins. Then the crippled bear dragged itself up off the ground and started backing away into the distance. The middle-aged man shouted at the youth by name and told him to kill it. A chi refining 6th layer Yao beast is treasure from end to end, and letting it go was not an option. Ho Swan was 5th layer and the bear was in pieces, so it should have been easy. Cornered animals do not agree to die. It threw itself at him, bear paws hard as iron, slamming into his magical sword over and over, and his face went pale. He had not been outside much. Looking at something that ferocious put real fear in his eyes, and he set his teeth and kept hunting for its weak point. The bear was at the end of itself, and holding on a little longer would finish it on its own. The middle-aged one genuinely earned his chi refining late stage. A dozen breaths and the lion was losing. Without that armor it would already have died, and being a 6th layer beast meant it was not going to die quickly either. Their attacks kept crashing together, and the spiritual chi boiled and the noise got bigger and bigger. From cover I looked at the corpses lying on that ground, and something fierce went through me. I apologized to both of them under my breath. A single hair-thin black and white divine needle went out swirling with black and white light, silent, faster than anything in that clearing, and passed through the back of the middle-aged man's head. The lion's claw came around and knocked the black sword out of his hand, and the follow-through went straight into his chest. His ribs caved completely, his mouth opened, and the blood came out of it. His divine soul was already shattered. He was dead before the claw landed, and the body went flying and hit the ground, and the blood went everywhere. A divine soul attack from those needles leaves no sound and no trace. He was locked into a hard fight and had no room to react at all, and by the time he registered anything was wrong, his soul was already gone. The lion had been suppressed the entire fight and had taken real injuries, with blood seeping through the joints in its armor. It looked at the cultivator it had just launched across the clearing, and its tyrannical eyes simply froze. It stared at its own claw, completely lost. Since when had it been that strong? Then it went over to the body at full speed, still on high alert, and put that claw down on his head and shattered it. It stood there afterward, with excitement coming up in its blood-red eyes. He really was dead, and then those eyes went straight to Ho Swan. Ho Swan had just swept a ray of deep blue sword light across the bear's open throat wound and taken its head off, and the huge body came down full of regret. He was thrilled, because a chi refining 6th layer Yao beast is treasure from end to end. Killing it had also cost him an enormous amount of energy, and since the lion was clearly no match for his uncle, he had not bothered checking his surroundings. He put a medicinal pill in his mouth to restore his spiritual chi. Then something felt wrong, because the clearing had gone far too quiet. The sound of fighting was completely gone. and a faint foul smell was coming from behind him. He spun and retreated and threw the deep blue sword out, and the lion's body closed the distance, knocked the sword aside and reached him. A claw mark opened across his chest and the bones underneath it shattered instantly, and the force threw him dozens of meters. A cultivator's body is simply not a Yao beast's, and the iron armor lion is not a modest example of one. The lion was wild with excitement. It had no idea why that human had suddenly become so weak, and it knew it was going to be the one left standing. His throat opened and the blood went everywhere, and the light in his eyes dimmed out with all that unwillingness still in them. The lion turned and charged into the lair. I came out like something that had never been there. I stored the purple spirit tiger, the crimson blood bear, and the black armored tusk hound, and then I went into the cave after it. 9 Kyong metal finger beams went into its rear with everything behind them, and one of them found the single most vulnerable spot on the animal. The blood sprayed and the excitement froze on its face, and then a black and white divine needle came out silently and went straight through its head. It never made a sound. It just came down. Those needles are genuinely terrifying. Twisting chaos to gain good power shattered its divine soul outright. I collected the corpse without any expression on my face. 2 Ho family cultivators dying here meant the Ho family was going to search this ground frantically, so to be safe, I did not touch either body or either storage pouch. The lion was never a match for me anyway, and I used the needle on it specifically so nothing would be left behind, because spells leave traces. Every family in this region knows the spells inside the Jang family's heavenly fire flame art. If the Ho family swept that battlefield and found something, the Jang family would pay for it, and it might well touch off a full war between us. As for ambushing that middle-aged man, I felt nothing about it at all. The Jang and Ho families have been fighting in the open and in the dark for a long time, and we have clashed more than once. Grandfather originally adopted 3 sons, and only 2 of them are still alive. One fell to the Ho family. The Ho family has also buried clansmen killed by Jang cultivators. And back when the Jang family had only grandfather at Qi refining 9th layer, he had reached Qi refining perfection, which is not a thing an ordinary 9th layer cultivator can stand against. As for me, I have no reputation anywhere in this region. Nobody was going to look at me twice. I went straight into the depths of the lair at speed. The light thinned and the smell got thick and pungent, and there were scattered bones and dried droppings across the floor. I looked past all of it, further in. Rooted against the mountain wall was a 3-inch spirit medicine, purple from root to tip, with the temperature around it noticeably higher than anywhere else in the cave. From a distance, it looked like an orb of purple light with violent heat packed inside it, steadily boiling the moisture out of the air. Upper first grade spirit medicine, purple yang flower. I said the name out loud before I could stop myself. I was already a medium first grade spiritual plant farmer, and the Jang family's old texts carry illustrations and spectral images of every ordinary spirit medicine, so I knew it on sight. The purple yang flower is fire attribute and carries a hint of purple firepower along with a faint trace of vital force. It is the single most effective counter to dark cold chi there is. Even among upper first grade spirit medicine, it sits at the very top. 4 or 5 meters from it, 3 purple shapes half a meter tall were crouched together. Tiger heads, pale purple bodies, fine black striping, and on each forehead a faint pattern shaped like the character for king. Ferocity in all 3 sets of purple eyes, and the lead one was a little sturdier than its siblings. It glared at me, opened its jaws to show me its fangs, and growled. 3 of them. I was rich. I ignored the cubs entirely, went forward, picked the purple yang flower, and put it into a jade box made for storing spirit medicine so its potency would not fade. Then I swung the green bamboo sword 3 times and knocked all 3 cubs unconscious. A bundle of cloth came out of my storage pouch and I wrapped them up together and strapped the bundle to my back. Then I searched the lair again, and where the cubs had been sleeping I found a fragmented map. I did not stop to look at it. I put it away and left. I did not linger 1 second. I did not touch either Ho family corpse or either storage pouch, and I left directly. A quarter of an hour later, the smell of blood in that clearing pulled in every Yao beast nearby. The earlier fighting had already gotten their attention, and the energy had been too violent for ordinary animals to approach until it stopped. After I left, both Ho family bodies were eaten. Their storage pouches were carried off by beasts. Every piece of evidence erased itself, and what was left on that ground was mottled bloodstains and nothing else. I was careful and I left nothing. Rumor says some powerful cultivators can trace origins through the bloodstains and objects left on a battlefield and project the fight itself back into view. Doing that would take a Purple Mansion Peak cultivator at minimum, and the Ho family is not remotely in that category, so I did not worry about it in the slightest. I took an unhurried, deliberately wide detour and came back to Heavenly Yang Mountain from a completely different direction. The formation shifted, and Huijiam's heart clearly went into his throat, and then he saw me through the light curtain and relaxed. He opened the array and let me in, asking how I was back so soon. 4 days out and here I was. and he wanted to know if I had run into something. I told him I had found some opportunities, and that was why. Then he noticed the enormous bundle on my back. I set it down and it came open on 3 purple spirit tiger cubs, already starting to wake up. He stared and got out the words purple spirit tiger cubs, then asked where they had come from and whether I had killed one. I nodded and said I had gotten lucky, that I ran into a badly injured purple spirit tiger and took advantage of the situation. He asked, with his whole face disbelieving, whether I had also come away with 3 cubs. I told him I could not help it. My luck is simply that good. Then a distinctly ingratiating expression came onto his face, and he asked whether we could discuss something. I told him not to start. I was keeping one and the rest were going to the family, and besides, at Chi refining second layer, did he think he had the resources to raise a purple spirit tiger? One sentence and his hopes were gone. His face fell, and he knew I was right, because even handed a cub he could not have fed it. The resources a Yao beast needs to grow are enormous. So I told him that when he reached mid-stage Chi refining, I would give him a Yao beast cub of his own. I shook my head at him while I said it, and something doting went through me. The 3rd generation of the Jiang family all get along, and my actual psychological age is somewhere near 50. So when I look at Huijian, I am looking at a child. He demanded to know whether I meant it. I told him a deal was a deal. He announced he was going to double his efforts and reach the Chi refining 3rd layer as fast as possible, and rushed off to his hut to sit and cultivate. I had said mid-stage. I shook my head and let it go. Looking over the field, I saw that some seed had already sprouted in broken soil, so I spent an hour casting the cloud rain technique over it to replenish the moisture. By then, the strongest cub had woken up, and its eyes were full of fierce light. That one could be called a low 1st grade Yao beast, with an Orad Chi refining 1st layer. The other 2 had not reached the Chi refinement stage at all. The male had gone out to hunt, been caught by the incense, met me, and died. The female had just given birth, lost an enormous amount of origin Chi, and had 3 infants to guard, which meant she could not go out and hunt either, which is why all 3 cubs were as weak as they were. The strongest one tensed and arched its back with its purple eyes full of ferocity, and then it launched itself straight at me, wild and untamable. My expression did not change. I slapped it across the face hard. My body was already comparable to a Chi refining late-stage cultivator's, and that animal had only just entered the 1st layer of Chi refining. The gap between us is a canyon. Half a meter of tiger went flying off my palm. I closed the distance and put fists the size of sandbags into it, until it was shrieking. I do not know the spell for controlling Yao beasts. I know what I know. If I wanted that animal to fear me from somewhere below thought, it was going to have to be beaten into complete submission. The noise woke the other 2, and they saw what was happening and charged me as well. It went the way it was always going to go. A quarter of an hour later, all 3 of them were on the ground, half dead, whimpering. I stood there with no expression and absolutely nothing in my eyes. Inside the storage pouch, black and white light swirled as the pearl devoured the bodies of the beasts I had killed. Everything useful already stripped out. The power inside it climbed fast enough to watch. My body strengthened again, the spiritual energy in my meridians got more refined, and my cultivation rose by degrees. Inside my sea of consciousness, the Chaos Taeguk visualization diagram kept turning like a chaotic divine millstone and kept refining my divine soul, pushing it toward Chi refining completion. 7 days went by. By then, the 3 cubs had been beaten into submission, and when those tiger eyes came up at me, they were full of fear. My divine soul is strong enough that I simply condensed a thread of it and sank it into the strongest one's weak sea of consciousness. If it ever decided to be disloyal, obliterating its divine soul would take an instant. In those same 7 days, the rice on Heavenly Yang Mountain came up out of the soil and grew beautifully, and I watched it constantly and took care of it properly. Then I lit another transmission talisman and sent word to my father, and a quarter of an hour later he was on the mountain. He asked whether I had found purple spirit tiger cubs, with his eyes already on the 3 of them beside me, so the answer was obvious. I told him I had tamed one and planned to hand the other 2 to the family. He nodded and said he would exchange them for resources of equal value, and that he was certainly not going to let me lose out. Looking at me, he kept getting more satisfied. His son was born with a powerful divine soul and superb comprehension ability, and 5 spiritual roots or not, his cultivation speed matched a 3-element spiritual root. First time out, gaining experience, and he had come back with a genuinely handsome opportunity. Because with enough Yao Beast flesh and blood, a purple spirit tiger can be raised to upper 1st grade in under 10 years, which meant I had just handed the Jiang family 2 Chi refining late-stage combatants, and with an opportunity they could even reach foundation establishment. Yao Beasts cultivate slowly, and their major realm bottlenecks are nowhere near as brutal as the cultivators, so as long as the family could tame them, it strengthened our foundation outright. Yao Beasts are everywhere. Yao Beast cubs are rare. Getting 3 at once made my luck look genuinely unnatural. Then he told me it was less than 3 months to the year's end, and that when the new year came, he would arrange somebody to relieve me here for a few days. When I got back to Green Bamboo Mountain, he would give me the resources and the family's reward. He glanced at the thatched cottage and asked why that kid had suddenly become so hardworking. Hugium was sitting cross-legged with the heaven and earth spiritual energy around him being drawn steadily in, his technique circulating without a break, refining his meridians while his cultivation climbed. In early-stage chi refining, taking medicinal pills is generally discouraged for the sake of a man's future Tao path. You absorb ambient chi, temper the meridians, and build a foundation that will hold. I told him I had promised the boy a Yao beast cub when he reached mid-stage chi refining. My father could not help laughing and observed that the kid certainly knew how to negotiate. Then I asked him whether Uncle Chung's injury had been caused by yin-cold spiritual energy. The question caught him off guard for a moment. Then he said yes. In an old battle, Uncle Chung had been struck by an opponent's yin-cold spiritual energy and taken hidden injuries, and it had cut off his road to chi refining late stage. He sighed, saying it. Uninjured, Uncle Chung would be at the 9th layer by now, and the Jiang family would be stronger for it, and we could hold more resources to support the clan's cultivation. I nodded, and then I took the jade box out of my storage pouch and opened it. Purple light swirled up and the temperature in the air jumped. He said the name before I could. Upper first grade spirit medicine, purple yang flower. I told him yes, and that since the family has no alchemist, I hoped the family would step forward and pay whatever it cost to have the purple yang flower refined into purple yang pills. Uncle Chung had suffered from that yin-cold energy for a long time, and with a purple yang pill there was a high chance of a full recovery. He might even ride the medicinal power straight into the 7th layer of chi refining. That idea had come to me the moment I picked the flower. If Uncle Chung recovered, the family gained a chi refining late-stage cultivator, and I would not have to keep sitting on Heavenly Yang Mountain. All of it depended on whether the Jiang family could actually get the pill refined, and without that the whole thing was talk. The Jiang family holds artifact refining and talisman refining legacies. Most clansmen dabble in both once they reach mid-stage chi refining, and those who show talent keep going. Those who genuinely have none become spiritual plant farmers instead. That craft has a threshold too, and it is a far lower one. Even a 5 spiritual roots cultivator can get there by grinding the Gyeong metal finger and the cloud rain technique long enough. Most Jiang clansmen are spiritual plant farmers. My father looked at the flower in my hand and went quiet for a moment. Then he asked what compensation I wanted. I told him I wanted off Heavenly Yang Mountain. If we really could refine purple yang pills, I wanted 1. And I hoped the family would train up another mid-stage chi refining cultivator to take over here as soon as possible. Heavenly Yang Mountain is fine and its vein is low grade, and that vein was still slowing me down. He agreed. What I had found was of enormous use to the Jiang family, and keeping me on that mountain was plainly holding me back. More to the point, what I had brought in was enough to silence anyone who wanted to object. He said the purple yang pill would not be a problem, and that he would ask my uncle to handle it. My uncle. A vague figure surfaced in my head. Nanya County borders Sangbu County, and Sangbu County has 2 major foundation establishment families, one of which is the O family. My uncle is an O family cultivator. In his 50s now, already at chi refining completion, and a foundation establishment seed of the O family. More importantly, he is also an upper first grade alchemist, and those 2 identities together give him a very high standing there. Even the family's 2 foundation establishment cultivators treat him with real deference. Back then my aunt, Jiang Rizal, fell for O Manhwa of the O family at first sight. One was a 5 spiritual roots cultivator out of a chi refining family, and the other was a foundation establishment seed of a foundation establishment family. So naturally the O family objected strenuously. In the end they could not talk him out of it and agreed to the marriage. And that is how the Jiang family acquired a connection to the O family. At the time the fight between the Jiang family and the Ho family was fierce, and we were consistently losing. That connection made the Ho family cautious enough to stop, and both sides have kept the peace for over a decade since, holding a clear line and minding their own business. Uncle Chung took his injuries in that same great battle with the Ho family, which is exactly why killing 2 Ho family cultivators put no weight on me whatsoever. By then, the Ho family had discovered their people were dead and started searching, and what they found were bare bones, shredded clothing, and both storage pouches. Nothing was missing and the ground carried no spellcraft fluctuation at all, which ruled out a loose cultivator ambush first thing. They investigated for a full month and found nothing. Their first suspicion went to the Jiang family, since the relationship between us is what it is. But no matter how long they looked, not one Jiang Chi refining late-stage cultivator came out suspicious. In the end, having no other outlet, the Ho family swallowed it and slaughtered the dozen or so Yao beasts that had eaten the bodies. They had lost a chi-refining 7th layer cultivator and a 5th layer one. For the Ho family, that is a fifth of their total strength gone, and their clan chief felt it bleeding out of him. Losing 2 cultivators for no discoverable reason is a heavy blow, because for a chi-refining family, every single clansman with a spiritual root matters enormously. My father said again that my uncle was an upper first grade alchemist and could certainly refine the purple yang pill, and he sounded completely certain about it. Whether the O family held the pill formula was not my problem to solve. Then he said there was no time to lose. He would take the 2 purple spirit tigers and the purple yang flower with him now, and at the year's end he would send somebody to relieve me. Then he casually interrupted Huijiam's cultivation and pulled him out of the hut and told him his second brother was back on the mountain and he was coming home to Green Bamboo Mountain. Huijiam pulled a sour face at me and announced he was leaving and that I was not to forget our agreement. I told him I remembered and that we would discuss it once he reached mid-stage chi refining, and I patted his head again on the way past. He asked, aggrieved, how many times he had to say it about the head. I told him not to worry, that he would still grow tall. He informed me I was lying and that he could already feel he had stopped growing. Then my father took him and left Heavenly Yang Mountain. The fields had turned into a sea of crimson. The rice had come an inch out of the soil, and the firepower inside the 6-fold red flame array radiated hard, holding the scarlet sun at exactly the temperature it wanted. What it needed now was the meticulous attention of a spiritual plant farmer to make it grow better and yield heavier, which meant Heavenly Yang Mountain still needed me on it. Time ran on, and then there were under 3 days left in the year. Outside the array, everything was white and silent, heaven and earth wrapped in snow. Inside it, the fire energy flared, and the temperature stayed exactly where the scarlet sun wanted it, and the crop was coming beautifully. 3 feet high now, and 7 acres wrapped again in the smell of rice. In another month it would be ripe. 2 months earlier my father had sent news. The Jiang family had spent what it had to spend, and Manhwa had refined the purple yang flower into purple yang pills. Because he is an upper first grade alchemist and the O family held the pill formula, the success rate came out excellent. 6 pills. He kept 2 and gave the other 4 to the Jiang family, and he did that only because the 2 families are relatives. 2 would have been generous. Normally, asking an alchemist to refine anything means preparing 3 complete sets of materials, however many sets get used. All he owes you afterward is the finished pills. The Jiang family had prepared exactly 1 set. An ordinary alchemist would not have accepted the request at all, and asking would have insulted him. Oh, Manhwa did it out of respect for my aunt. Jiang Rizal has been married into the O family for nearly 20 years and has borne Manhwa 2 children, a son and a daughter, and enviably both of them have spiritual roots. That has earned her a genuine degree of respect over there. Uncle Chung had already taken a purple yang pill and recovered. He was currently refining that enormous medicinal potency toward a breakthrough into chi refining 7th layer, with a very good chance of reaching late stage. The 2 purple spirit tigers had been tamed and domesticated, and had both reached chi refining 1st layer. The family had begun looking for Tiger Clan Yao beasts, so that when the 2 matured we could breed them and multiply the bloodline. Every cub that carried it would be kept, and the ones that did not would be culled once they grew. Another way to raise the family's combat strength. We were also hunting for a beast-taming legacy, to domesticate them properly. My own cultivation had reached chi refining 5th layer perfection. Out in the field I had killed over 30 Yao beasts large and small, and most of that flesh and blood went into the pearl. The black and white energy inside it was overflowing again, because it had devoured nearly 8 mid-stage chi refining beasts, and every one of them generated 10-fold what ambient spiritual energy would have. There was nothing surprising about it being full. Reaching chi refining 6th layer was still going to take a few months. My own estimate had been 2 years. What changed it was the pearl devouring flesh and blood without stopping and strengthening my body while it did. Plus the fact that I never ran out of Yao beast meat. The 20 pounds of spiritual wine my mother gave me had gone entirely down my throat as well, and both the wine and the meat carry serious spiritual chi. Half a year had put me at 5th layer perfection, and a stretch of tempering would carry me into the 6th on its own. The Chaos Tegoop visualization diagram tempers my divine soul every moment and holds my pace level with a 3-element spiritual root, and I had a distinct sense that my speed had quietly picked up another fraction. It will keep accelerating as my cultivation grows, and because I am 5 spiritual roots, the foundation underneath all of it comes out incomparably solid. In white, I sank my mind into heaven and earth, and a dark cloud 30 feet across formed over the field with rain falling steadily out of it into the crop. The cloud rain technique had reached perfection, which made me an upper first grade spiritual plant farmer. With a divine soul like mine, spells hold no difficulty. Every basic spell of the 5 elements was at perfection by then. The Heavenly Fire Flame art records 2 of its own, the Skyfire Sword and the Profound Firestorm. The Skyfire Sword was at major achievement. the profound firestorm, because of how much power it carries and how much spiritual energy it burns, had only reached minor achievement. Even so, released at my cultivation, it would badly wound a careless chi-refining 7th layer cultivator. And inside my sea of consciousness, 3 black and white divine needles floated slowly with strands of chaos tegu power distorting everything near them. At mid-stage chi refining, 3 is my ceiling. Late stage will raise it. The rice was in perfect order under my hands, and the yield was going to beat the first half of the year, which meant more resources for the family. The next morning I finished the day's cultivation and was about to practice spells when a familiar aura came up outside the array, and I started smiling. Uncle Chung. He was in high spirits, standing straight, and there was actual vigor in the way he walked. His injuries were healed and he had stepped into chi refining late stage. That was the purple yang pill. Its purple firepower is brutally restraining to yin-cold spiritual energy, and it carries that faint trace of life force which made it the single best healing pill he could have been given. Purple yang flowers are rare enough that the Jiang family had searched for one for years and never found anything, and I had walked into one. I bowed and congratulated him on reaching chi refining late stage. I have always been respectful with the elders of this family. He started to thank me and got as far as saying that if it were not for me, and then stopped, with tears standing in his eyes. For over 10 years, that yin-cold energy had tormented him, his realm regressing instead of climbing, his body wasting. The family had gone looking for resources over and over, and none of it did anything, because a chi refining family can only mobilize so much. He had never expected recovery in this lifetime, and looking at me, he could not find anything to say. I told him it was all in the past, and that from here, the Jiang family was only going to get better. I stepped forward and took both his hands and said it word by word. He said the word good 3 times, and looking into my eyes, for whatever reason, a hard confidence came up in him. The Jiang family was going to march towards something. Then he collected himself and told me the year's end was close and I should hurry home, and that he would guard this place. I told him it would not be long before somebody in the family reached mid-stage chi refining, and that when it happened he could go back to Green Bamboo Mountain and cultivate in peace. That is the whole hardship of a chi refining family. We do not have a vein worth the name, and we cannot afford to lose the fields either, and nurturing a spiritual vein takes a staggering number of spirit stones. It is a closed loop with no exit in it. He waved that off, took the formation plate back out of my hand, waved again, and disappeared into the thatched cottage. I said goodbye and left Heavenly Yang Mountain with the purple spirit tiger. 3 months had grown it fast, and it stood a meter now, black stripes flowing over the purple and the fierce king character standing out on its forehead. As it walked at my side, eating flesh and blood every day had already carried it to chi refining 2nd layer, and it could contribute real combat power. On the road home, I killed 3 more low 1st grade Yao beasts, and the tiger killed one of them itself. Having tasted blood, it looked meaner afterward. The pearl was already overflowing, so Yao beast flesh no longer did anything for it, and I collected the bodies as food for the tiger instead. Then Green Bamboo Mountain came up in front of me, clad in silver, frost, and snow across the whole bamboo forest, and it had a charm to it that nothing else has. I went home. My father and mother had already heard and laid out an enormous meal, and both of them were smiling at me. And sitting beside my mother was a 10-year-old girl in bright colors, fair-skinned, with clear sparkling eyes and 2 dimples, and her hair tied up in a braid that pointed straight at the ceiling. My younger sister, Jiang Huiyan, she had drawn qi into her body that year and become a qi-refining 1st layer cultivator with a 4-element spiritual root, ranked 6th among the 3rd generation. She had her arms folded across her chest, and she was glaring at me. My face went a little warm. This family dotes on her past all reason. She asked, in the voice of a very small adult, whether my leaving without saying goodbye had meant I no longer wished to acknowledge her as my sister. My mother rolled her eyes and flicked her across the back of the head, demanding to know who had taught her to talk like that. Her 2nd brother was home now, she said, so hurry up and eat. She yelped and her whole composure evaporated. She got out 1 word of protest, and my mother asked her what exactly she meant by it. She turned her head with her face gone red, looked at my mother's expression, and deflated completely. She covered the back of her head and muttered that if a person wanted to eat, there was no need to resort to violence. Then she grabbed her bowl and channeled her entire outrage into her rice. I shook my head, laughed, sat down, and ate. My parents said very little. When the family had eaten and drunk its fill, my sister pulled a face at me and vanished off to wherever she vanishes to. After the meal, my father handed me my purple yang pill. Then he took out 800 spirit stones and said it was the family's compensation, and that neither he nor grandfather was going to let me lose out. Then he produced a black pouch and said that since I had already tamed the purple spirit tiger, carrying it around everywhere was inconvenient, so the family had bought me a spirit beast pouch. A spirit beast pouch counts as a spatial magic treasure. It holds Yao beasts and lets them move around freely inside. The one in his hand was upper first grade and could hold 3 upper first grade Yao beasts at once, which is not cheap. Between that, the pill, and 800 spirit stones, the value was well past what I had handed over. I said it was too much. My hands took it very quickly anyway. He laughed and said the excess was my compensation. Then he told me he and grandfather had discussed it, that Uncle Chung had recovered, and that after the turn of the year I would not need to go back to Heavenly Yang Mountain. I would cultivate properly on Green Bamboo Mountain and aim for chi refining 6th layer next year. I agreed. My mother started clearing up around us without interrupting. I told him I had Yao Beast materials and he should take a look, and started emptying the storage pouch out. He told me to stop pouring. The family wanted all of it, because the family has an artifact refining legacy, and he would convert the whole lot into spirit stones for me. His expression never changed looking at that pile, because besides being an upper first grade spiritual plant farmer, he is also an upper first grade artifact refiner. And my second uncle is a medium first grade talisman master, which is exactly how grandfather produced 2 medium first grade magical artifacts without straining. I nodded and handed everything over. Then he told me that now I had reached mid-stage chi refining. Once the new year passed, I should go to grandfather and learn the artifact refining and talisman refining legacies. He wanted to find out whether I had talent for either. There was real expectation in his eyes. I told him to rest easy, that I would become an artifact refiner stronger than he was. He laughed and said he would wait and see. Any father hopes to be surpassed. 5 spiritual roots or not, my comprehension ability gave me a genuinely good chance at it. Then he told me to rest, that I had only just gotten back, and that the family meeting was in 3 days, and he stood up and left. I went back to my own immortal cave. The purple spirit tiger had already gotten comfortable with the area and was lying quietly on the floor. I refined the spirit beast pouch, set my own restriction on it, and with a thought put the tiger inside. For a Yao beast, the space and the air in there are no different from outside, and the spiritual power it costs has no effect on the animal. I ran it a few more times until the tiger had adapted. Green Bamboo Mountain is an upper first grade spiritual vein, so for a chi refinement stage cultivator there is simply never a shortage of heaven and earth spiritual energy. On Heavenly Yang Mountain I had regularly run into the problem of not having enough. I sat down and cultivated. 3 days went by, and the year turned over. 16. My cultivation base kept steadying, and the spiritual power in my meridians kept growing heavier, and my realm barrier had started to stir. At the peak of Green Bamboo Mountain, an ancient bronze bell rang out across the whole mountain, and inside the main hall the Jiang family's cultivators arrived, one after another for the annual family meeting. Grandfather sat in the main seat, smiling. Uncle Chung was healed and had reached chi refining 7th layer, and I had reached the 5th. My breakthrough pace was fiercer than a dual spiritual roots genius's, which is when grandfather started wondering whether I was carrying some kind of special physique. In the cultivation world, spiritual roots are not the only distinction. Some people are simply born with bodies that are incomparably powerful. There are spirit physiques, saint physiques, divine physiques, and immortal physiques. There are other special talents too, like the exquisite 7-orifice heart, or the pupil-type talents. Any of them will hand a cultivator formidable combat strength and a heaven-defying cultivation speed, and the people who have them are the chosen children of this world. He suspected I might be one, because no matter how powerful a man's divine soul is, it does not by itself explain a speed like that. The pity is that the Jiang family is a small chi-refining family with no foundation for investigating anything about me. My reputation was nowhere and no other family had noticed me. It weighed on him. His conclusion was that in future it would be best if I stayed on Green Bamboo Mountain, because going out too often carried a real risk of falling. Gold is gold. It shines eventually. Before long, every Jiang cultivator on the mountain had arrived. Grandfather told them the family's harvest this year had been good, and that our chi-refining late-stage cultivators had increased by 1, and our mid-stage cultivators by 1 as well. He hoped the family would be stronger again next year. Then he yielded the floor to my father, since he had already abdicated in favor of the worthy. My father did not make a speech. He brought out a large quantity of spirit stones and started distributing the year's stipends. 3 low-grade spirit stones for early-stage chi refining, 6 for mid-stage, 9 for late-stage. That is the standard, and the other chi refining families run roughly the same numbers. That single act made several hundred spirit stones disappear. On top of it, anyone who had contributed to the family received rewards, which is another large expense. And this is with our numbers as thin as they are. A foundation establishment family spends anywhere from a few thousand to tens of thousands a year on stipends alone. Every year, a chi refining family also has to offer resources up to a foundation establishment family in exchange for protection. The Jiang family's income is spiritual rice. Part of it is sold to fund the stipends, part is kept back for brewing spiritual wine, and on top of that we still have to buy from other families. Every clansman took their stipend and looked delighted about it, my sister included, since she had stepped into the chi refining first layer and now counted as a Jiang family cultivator. Then my father sat down and started talking, and it turned out he had thought about all of this for a long time. He said the harvest had been good and the gap in the family's resources was still very large, and that we needed new income and lower spending both. From now on, any clansman who discovered rare resources, mineral veins, spiritual fields, cubs of rare Yao beasts, anything of that order, would report it to the family and receive a large quantity of resources. On top of that, he would hold a permanent 20% share of whatever that vein produced, passed from father to son until the resource ran out. As long as the family stood, that share stood. The hall started murmuring at that. Find a single mineral vein and your whole life smooths out. Handing it to the family means the family spends its own resources mining and guarding it, negotiating with other families and paying whatever that costs, and sometimes mining it jointly with them. Letting the finder keep a fifth of it was genuine sincerity. Then he kept going into the second half of it. From now on, the family's stipends were being reformed, and everything inside the family would be distributed in merit points, with 1 merit point exchangeable for 1 low-grade spirit stone. He ignored the reaction entirely and pulled dozens of blank identity jade tokens out of his storage pouch. He had refined them himself, 1 for each person, and every merit point transaction would run through them. At that, the composure went out of the room. My uncle Jiang Rian asked whether this was even workable, pointing out that we are a chi refining family and have hardly reached the scale where issuing merit points makes sense. His cultivation is not weak, chi refining 7th layer. Grandfather had 3 adopted sons and raised all 3 himself. 1 died in the Great Battle with the Ho family. Uncle Chung spent over a decade being eaten alive by yin cold spiritual power and had just come out the other side of it into chi refining 7th layer. Counting everyone, the Jiang family now held 5 chi refining late-stage cultivators. Grandfather and my father at the 9th layer, Uncle Chung, Uncle Rian, and my second Uncle Jiang Riang at the 7th. Mid-stage chi refining was only me and my eldest brother Jiang Huin. And there was grandfather's youngest son, my youngest uncle Jiang Rigyom, who is the same age as me. He is an earth, fire, wood 3-element spiritual root, and his innate talent runs well past my father's. Earth, fire, and wood feed each other in the 5-element cycle, so his cultivation moves faster than most 3-element cultivators. Artifact refining, alchemy, talisman refining, he gets twice the result for half the work in any of them. My eldest brother is 4-element, 30 this year, and also at chi refining 5th layer. He was stationed at the spiritual wine shop in Nanya County and had not come home. Our numbers are simply too thin. The 3rd generation has not grown up, and most of us sit in early stage chi refining. Give it another 10 years and the backbone of this family will be standing, and then none of this will be embarrassing anymore. My father answered the objection. 5 chi refining late stage cultivators already, and the family's strength would keep climbing. In the past there had been no rules and the whole thing ran on habit and improvisation, and the guidelines had to be laid down now, before the clan grew. If our numbers doubled, could the family's spirit stones carry it? And the family needed to bank spirit stones so that when a rare resource or an auction came up we had something to spend. That silenced the whole hall at once. Inside the family, merit points do what spirit stones used to do. Nobody's rights or benefits change at all, and the spirit stones the family can actually deploy go up enormously. That alone lets the family grow properly. Then he added the part with teeth in it. Merit points can be exchanged for spirit stones, and spirit stones cannot be exchanged for merit points. From this year, every resource in the family would be distributed in merit points. Everything in the treasury had been priced, and if anyone objected, now was the moment. I agreed with all of it, because it lets the family develop, and because the identity jade tokens tie the clan together in a way nothing else had. Grandfather spoke first, and he wanted 1 addition made. Any cultivator guarding spiritual fields or mining a shop for the family would receive extra merit points every year, applied to every clansman without exception. Work for the family, get paid for it. I seconded it immediately, because for the Jiang family this was 100 benefits and no harm anywhere in it. Uncle Rian seconded it second, clearly having been talked around, and everyone else fell in behind. The Jiang family is an insignificant cultivation family, with barely a dozen cultivators in it, and there is very little petty squabbling among us. Everyone in that hall wanted the same thing. It passed unanimously without a single vote against. Afterward, we took inventory of everything the family owned, talked about where we were going, and closed the meeting. Besides Green Bamboo Mountain, the family holds 3 other spiritual mountains: Heavenly Yang Mountain, Xionan Mountain, and Xiangbong Mountain. All 3 are low first-grade spiritual veins, with 7 acres of spiritual field on each. The treasury had a slight surplus that year, so the plan was to upgrade a vein. A spiritual vein's rank can be raised, and in the cultivation world anything can be raised if you pay enough spirit stones for it. Our 3 mountains were ranked so low that they were badly slowing every cultivator stationed on them, and the surplus only covered 1. After talking it over with grandfather, my father chose Heavenly Yang Mountain and drew 1,500 spirit stones out of the treasury and put them into that vein. Uncle Chung would keep guarding it, and in under a month it would rise to medium first grade, and then his cultivation would stop being crippled by the place. That single decision took more than half the spirit stones in the treasury. That came to nearly 5 years of savings. It was still worth it, because as long as a spiritual vein is not violently drained, it keeps pulling in heaven and earth spiritual chi on its own, and it stays stable. For a cultivation family, that is a long-term asset. The merit point system lit a genuine fire under the clan. For me personally, it changed nothing at all. I was at chi refining 5th layer, and in this family it was not remotely my turn to make decisions. Having my father and grandfather standing between me and the weather was frankly a fine arrangement. What I needed to do was cultivate. A month later, Heavenly Yang Mountain's vein was formally promoted to medium first grade, which meant it could properly feed a mid-stage chi refining cultivator. The family also gained another mid-stage cultivator, Jiang Huji, ranked 3rd among the 3rd generation. He was 16 that year as well, about a month younger than me, since a cultivator's age is counted by bone age. His parents are Green Bamboo Town locals, grandfather's bloodline both of them, but only clansmen with a spiritual root inherit the generation character and get brought up the mountain. Children born to mortals carry a real chance of having a spiritual root, and children sired by cultivators are not guaranteed to have one either. Rumor says that once a man enters the golden core stage, every child he sires has one, since a golden core cultivator has stepped into a different order of being entirely. In the whole dang kingdom cultivation world, there are only a few dozen of them. The eastern wastelands are vast past measuring and full of standing kingdoms. The environment is brutal. Demons and monsters rise together everywhere. Demonic path cultivators keep appearing, and that is before you account for how powerful and numerous the Yao race is. There are several hundred countries out there, and the Dane Kingdom is one. And in the eastern wastelands, a kingdom is only permitted to exist and to bear a region's luck if an ascent soul cultivator presides over it. Without one, the kingdom's luck cannot be carried at all, and the whole thing fragments. Huiji is 4 element, and by his own cultivation speed, he should never have reached mid-stage chi refining at that age. What did it was that the family had a great many late-stage cultivators and very few mid-stage ones. So with his agreement, the family bought him a spirit origin pill, a medium first-grade medicinal pill. The essence origin pills I had been given were also medium first grade, and a spirit origin pill is worth 3 or 4 times as much. It assists a cultivator's breakthrough directly. Cultivate to chi refining 3rd layer perfection, swallow 1, and the bottleneck breaks and you step into mid-stage. The price he paid was guarding a spiritual mountain for the family free of charge for 5 years. Once he advanced, he went straight to Cheongbong Mountain, with at least 2 years to hold. With merit points running, the spirit stones the family banked each year came out more than 10 times what it used to be. 1 year of that would fund upgrading the veins on all our mountains. After that, nobody's cultivation would be dragged down by where they were posted. The family had also started stockpiling ore and Yao Beast materials. My father had stepped into chi refining 9th layer and only needed to keep polishing to reach chi refining completion, which meant he suddenly had time. He is an upper first grade artifact refiner, so he spent that time refining, and artifact refining is genuinely lucrative work as long as your success rate is high. The rice across all 50 acres matured again and brought the family several thousand spirit stones. My own cultivation kept getting polished, and my foundation kept going deeper, and I could feel that within 10 days I would break into chi refining 6th layer. Green Bamboo Mountain's heaven and earth spiritual energy runs several times denser than Heavenly Yang Mountains, so nothing about the place was slowing me. Sitting in my immortal cave, I took out the fragment map. The thing is jet black across its whole surface, and I could not identify the material. It feels smooth. Fine black lines are drawn on it outlining some vague scene that even I could not resolve. At the very center is the character for Yin. There is nothing else anywhere on it. I probed it over and over, pouring in my own spiritual energy, and then 5 elements attribute energy, and it did not react at all. Judging by the tears along its edges, it should be one of 4 pieces. I went over it repeatedly and got nowhere. I touched it with divine soul power and it did not so much as ripple, so I stopped and put it away. Once my strength was greater, I would take it apart properly. Inside my sea of consciousness, the black and white divine millstone at the center of the Chaos Taegok visualization diagram kept turning, crushing, and tempering my divine soul. Somewhere along the way, that divine soul stepped into chi refining completion. The energy inside the realm-breaking pearl had overflowed again. 3 black and white divine needles sat there silent, flickering with a cold light that goes through a man. That divine soul technique matters more to me than almost anything else I own. With a divine soul like mine behind it, I am close to unbeatable anywhere I go. and a chi refining late-stage cultivator caught unaware simply dies. Divine soul techniques of any kind are extremely rare. Foundation establishment and Purple Mansion cultivators do not necessarily have one. And as my divine soul keeps transforming, the needles will change with it and hit harder every time. I was genuinely looking forward to finding out. The Jang family was visibly flourishing. Next door, the Ho family had gone dark. Two chi-refining late-stage cultivators gone had cut into their strength, and while they still had more mid-stage cultivators than we did, at the top of the ladder we had already passed them. Our changes made them look at us suspiciously all over again, and no matter how they searched, they could not find one trace pointing back to the Jang family. The Ho family has coveted our artifact refining and wine brewing legacies for a long time, and that is what the constant rivalry between us was always actually about. It was only after my aunt married into the O family that the O family's weight made them cautious enough to ease off, and that was because we were losing. Now that our strength had grown, my father was not going to sit still, and two Ho family cultivators falling out of nowhere was a gift dropped in our lap. Along the border between us, clashes started flaring again. Everything the Jang family swallowed back then, the Ho family was going to pay back with interest. Both sides stayed relatively restrained for the moment. My father simply advanced steadily and kept forging magical artifacts for the family, taking merit points matching the value of each piece. Everyone in the family with a specialized skill works the same way now. My second uncle went the same way. Chi refining 7th layer himself, and a medium 1st grade talisman master, and before the reforms he had never shown much enthusiasm for it. Now refining talismans for the family earned him merit points, so in his spare hours he refined and stocked the treasury and exchanged the points for whatever suited him, quietly refining his own cultivation while he did it. And as his success rate climbed, he had already started reaching for upper 1st grade talismans. The day he produced his first one, the Jang family would have an upper 1st grade talisman master. The family was thriving, and everything was moving the right way. 3 days later, something shifted inside me with a muffled crack, and a powerful aura erupted and then pulled itself back in. The spiritual energy in my meridians turned heavier and richer. The heavenly fire flame art picked up speed again, and the impurities in my meridians got flushed out until the meridians themselves were tougher. My body came up along with all of it. What I wanted next was a body cultivator technique, something that would temper the frame further. Chi refining, body refining, and the divine soul, all three together, would give me a foundation nothing could shake. 2 hours later, my cultivation was done, and my 6th layer realm had completely stabilized. I breathed out the turbid air and walked out of the immortal cave and went to grandfather's residence. There are very few Jang family members on Green Bamboo Mountain, so the peak is extremely quiet and only livens up around the new year. My sister had become a cultivator and felt the wonder of drawing chi into her body for the first time. She had stopped thinking about playing and settled into the monotony of absorbing heaven and earth spiritual energy every day to raise her realm. Grandfather barely manages anything at all anymore. He finishes his daily cultivation and spends the rest of his time brewing wine. The Jang family exists because of what he did alone. Making it stronger takes generations of descendants spending themselves and risking death to reach a new level. His single greatest wish in this life is to raise a foundation establishment cultivator for this family, and turn us into a foundation establishment family. Right now, my father is the candidate with the best odds, 49 that year, with 11 years left before the 60-year threshold, which is enough time to charge at chi refining completion. The problem is the foundation establishment pill. By rank, it is only a 2nd-order high-grade medicinal pill. The main ingredient is a 3rd-grade spirit medicine, the golden sunflower, plus around 10 2nd-grade spirit medicines as supplements. There is a second method that uses the monster core of a 2nd-order high-grade Yao beast with over 10 other precious 2nd-grade spirit medicines instead. An ordinary foundation establishment family does not have the standing to refine it at all. The pill formula circulates widely and the families qualified to actually make it are almost non-existent, and only a few veteran Purple Mansion families can produce them reliably. Every time one appears, it causes a storm of blood. The going value is around 10,000 spirit stones, far above any ordinary 2nd-order high-grade pill. With the Jang family's finances, getting one is close to impossible. There were still 11 years left on the clock. If no pill turned up in that time, my father would have to force the barrier by himself and take the risk. Going from chi refining to foundation establishment is savagely dangerous. One misstep severs the meridians, wrecks your origin chi, and slashes your lifespan, and plenty of men simply die on the spot. A foundation establishment pill strengthens the body and the meridians, and calms the violent heaven and earth spiritual energy. It raises a chi refining cultivator's odds by 30%, which is enough to drive men out of their minds wanting one. Younger is better for the attempt because vigor and blood vitality are more boundless. Every cultivator at chi refining completion has an inherent 30% chance. A pill takes it to 60. A firm, unyielding mind adds another 10. That is why the price is what it is. One foundation establishment cultivator extends a family's dominance by 200 years, and if descendants keep striving generation after generation, there might eventually be a chance at glimpsing the Purple Mansion. A chi refining cultivator lives 120 years. A foundation establishment cultivator lives 240. Cultivators can also consume lifespan extending spiritual items, and every one of those is extraordinarily precious, and a man only gets 3 such opportunities in an entire life. Eventually, I reached grandfather's bamboo building. He sensed my aura and laughed and said it seemed the Jang clan was destined to prosper, and asked whether I had already stepped into the 6th level of chi refining. He was genuinely delighted and more certain than ever that his grandson was carrying some kind of spiritual physique. A cultivator with 1, provided he does not die young, becomes a Purple Mansion cultivator at worst, and most of them reach golden core. That is what a spiritual physique is worth. I bowed politely and said I was glad I had not failed his expectations, without any swagger in it. The admiration in his face was past words. I was only 16 years old at the time. At that pace, he thought I could reach chi refining completion by 30, which would leave a full 30 years before the age 60 threshold. Even if my father did not succeed, I would still have enormous room, because in 40-odd years the Jang family could certainly accumulate enough spirit stones to buy a foundation establishment pill. There was open fire burning in his eyes. Whatever time he had left, he needed to keep brewing spirit wine and banking resources. If the Rai generation did not make it, the hope moved to the Hui generation. As long as this family stayed of one mind, a foundation establishment cultivator would eventually be born out of it. He had never been that confident in his life. He asked, smiling and quietly urgent, what had brought me to him. I told him I had reached the 6th level of chi refining and would not break through again for a while, so I wanted to find out whether I had talent for artifact refining or talisman refining. I said it with a fair amount of confidence, because the Chaos Taegyeok visualization diagram refines my divine soul every moment, and my comprehension ability is not ordinary. He stood up and nodded, and reminded me that with the family reformed, receiving a legacy costs merit points. I told him that mine were more than sufficient. The Jang family may have restructured, and it is still only a chi refining family, and we hold no Heart Demon Great Oath legacy to stop a technique from leaking. So only people grandfather personally approves may look at our 2 great legacies. I had no real interest in talisman refining. Biting off more than you can chew is not a habit I have. And among the 4 great arts, once your rank in one of them rises, picking up other legacies and pushing them higher later is not especially difficult. So I intended to push the Tao of artifact refining first. Among the 100 arts of cultivation, the 4 main professions are the popular ones, and among those 4, alchemy ranks first, artifact refining second, formations third, and talisman refining last. Grandfather deducted 100 merit points from my identity jade token. I had several hundred on it, all from those Yao Beast materials, and from the family's rewards, since from that year the Jang family stopped handing out spirit stones at all. Then he passed me the artifact refining legacy and told me to study it myself and ask my father about anything I did not understand. He has no talent in that direction. The only thing he knows is wine. My eldest brother has talent for the wine though, and studying under grandfather since childhood has made him a wine master. Of the family's 2 legacies, my father holds artifact refining and my second uncle holds talisman refining, and grandfather's 2 adopted sons, lacking talent for either, are both spiritual plant farmers. In the cultivation world, if you are willing to work, at worst you end up a spiritual plant farmer, laboring away like an old farmer. I thanked him, took the legacy, and went back to my immortal cave. 3 days later, the legacy in my palm was ash. For disciples of cultivation families, the techniques and skills live in the head, and getting a legacy out of a family cultivator is close to impossible unless you control him outright and search his soul. My honest assessment was that the difficulty was not that high. The green bamboo sword is the Jang family's signature magical artifact. Our own cultivators carry them, and we also sell them outward, because green bamboo grows everywhere on this mountain, and some of it counts as tier 1 spiritual wood. That resource contributes real value to the family. Once I had the tier 1 legacy down, I prepared the materials for a green bamboo sword and did my first refining. The furnace I used was a low first grade one my father had discarded years earlier, which was more than adequate for me. I laid out the materials, ran the whole process in my head first, and then started. Smelting in order, shaping when the heat came right, finalizing the form. Then, in my palm, I traced 3 simple sharpness runes and imprinted them into the sword, which is the hardest step in the entire craft. I did it in one pass without hesitating anywhere. After the engraving came hammering and nourishing, adjusting and tempering by stages, and 15 minutes later a green bamboo sword was sitting in my hand. It had simply worked, and there really was not much difficulty in it. If anyone had heard me say that out loud, they would have wanted to break my skull open. One try, and I was a low first grade artifact refiner. So I simply kept going with it. 15 minutes later, another sword came out of the furnace. My realm was still a little unstable from the recent breakthrough, and refining continuously burned and circulated my spiritual power, and steadied it as I worked. Half an hour in, on the 10th sword, something cracked and the furnace let out a boom. The materials inside were ruined, and the green bamboo went completely charred, which was more like it, since that success rate had been making the whole thing feel unreal. I shook my head. By then my spiritual power was mostly gone. Without cultivation behind you, you cannot refine anything at all. 3 days later, I carried 30 low first grade green bamboo swords to my father and watched his face while I did it. I told him to convert all of them into merit points and then swap those for artifact refining materials, because I was going to start refining new magical artifacts. He went quiet and looked at me the way a man looks at something that should not exist. He knew my comprehension ability was supreme, and apparently he had not understood how far that went. He did not stop moving though. He took the swords and prepared a large quantity of materials for me, because he wanted to see whether I could keep succeeding. 3 days after that, looking at a large pile of low first grade magical artifacts, he was thoroughly convinced. When grandfather heard, he threw his head back and laughed, and got more motivated than ever. For the family's future, we had to keep pushing. A year later, the Jiang family took over the shop next door to our spiritual wine shop in Nanya County City. It bought Yao Beast materials and ore, and sold Tier 1 magical artifacts on the side. Across that year, I refined an enormous number of low first grade artifacts for the family, at a success rate that came out at an appalling 100%. Then I pushed for medium first grade, failed once, and got it on the second attempt. Over the same year, the rice matured twice more. Artifacts started selling, and the family banked enough spirit stones to upgrade the remaining 2 mountains. 3,000 spirit stones took Cheongbong Mountain and Cheonan Mountain to medium first grade veins. That year, the family also gained another mid-stage Qi refining cultivator, Zhang Huyu, ranked 4th among the 3rd generation. 5 spiritual roots, another green bamboo town native with 2 mortal parents. The Jiang family's strength was climbing by the season, and without compromising the family's development, we started actively raising clansmen. With Huiyu at Qi refining 4th layer, Uncle Chung was called back from Heavenly Yang Mountain and sent to Nanya County City to mine the shop. Huijian had reached Qi refining 3rd layer. All 3 of the family's other mountains were medium first grade now and would not hinder anyone. So he chose to leave Green Bamboo Mountain and guard 1 to earn merit points. Our power kept growing steadily. In the struggle with the Ho family, we consistently held the upper hand. Our cultivators kept getting stronger, and loose cultivators stopped being willing to provoke us casually. Another year went by and I was 18. My cultivation had reached Qi refining 6th layer perfection, and I had become a medium first grade artifact refiner with a success rate that had gone back to an astonishing 100%. Over 2 years, I forged hundreds of medium first grade artifacts for the family and earned a considerable amount of merit points doing it. The Jiang family's artifact refining shop made a name for itself in Nanya County. Our first grade artifacts run noticeably higher in quality than other families, and more to the point, my success rate is nearly perfect. And that alone earns enormous profits for the family and for me. On the back of that shop, even the wine business improved. Family income started genuinely rising, and my second uncle finally had enough resources to practice properly. A month before, he had become an upper first grade talisman master. Everyone was climbing. My eldest brother advanced to Qi refining 6th layer. He is 4 element, and back when the family was even weaker than now, he started working for it early, so his own progress had been slow. As the eldest of the 3rd generation, that duty was never escapable. For a family to develop, somebody always gets spent. Uncle Ryan reached Qi refining 8th layer. He and Uncle Chung are both past 60, so they have lost the qualification to charge a foundation establishment, and both of them are relaxed about it. Reaching Qi refining completion in this life would satisfy either of them. My father, after more than 2 years of accumulation, was not far from Qi refining completion. Across those 2 years, the Jiang family's momentum was extremely fast, and we firmly suppressed the Ho family, which they found galling. Before either side quite noticed, our positions had completely reversed. I sat across from my father, and he looked at me with something complicated in his face. The talent I had shown in artifact refining had gotten frankly frightening. He is an upper first grade artifact refiner himself, and he still fails occasionally on medium first grade pieces, holding around 70% and 90% on low first grade. Mine was essentially 100. That gap is enormous, and it is exactly why our shop in Nanya County could sustain itself and then become a sensation. A perfect success rate saves a family an enormous quantity of resources. He said I had reached Qi refining 6th layer completion and become a medium first grade artifact refiner, and asked whether, with my talent, I should already be able to make upper first grade. I nodded and told him I could, and that I simply had not had the time to try. He went quiet again. When a son turns out this exceptional, the pressure on the father is not small. Then he asked whether I had hit a bottleneck at 6th layer completion.